in here. I just need to. Oopsie, sorry. Get people in here. I need to turn that down. Can you guys hear me okay? I am just setting up a little early because I need to check some things with Multiguest and make sure I can make the boxes bigger. There's the chat. Okay, cool. And if anyone wants to check for me on YouTube and see if we're broadcasting, I believe we are. I think I have figured out how to successfully push to YouTube from my iPad so it doesn't slow down TikTok Studio. I'm getting better at this by the day, like truly. I don't want to brag or anything, but I have learned like 4 different softwares in such a short amount of time. Hey, Ari. Danielle and Danny and Mandy are going to be joining soon. Danny is a doctor and is doing clinicals right now. So she's probably joining about 10 minutes late. Ari, do you want to do me a favor as long as you're here? Will you request? Because I need to try to make these boxes bigger. It would be pretty weird if I had a doctor and someone with 700,000 followers in small boxes. So I just need to figure that out. Hopefully before they get here. Or if anyone wants to request and help me figure that out. Okay, there's Mandy. Hey girl, let me just see.
Hello.
Expand. Oh, so it just makes okay, so it will rotate us. I've never done multi-guest before. I'm just trying to figure out like what the best way to do this is. If sorry. Yeah, you don't mind being
Yeah.
in big boxes. I actually like this. This is like scary. I hate being in big box.
I'm not usually in the big box,
No, I
so
know. I'll
I'm
switch you
always a
back real quick.
guest.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying it on TikTok Studio. So I guess then,
Of course.
yeah, what I'll do then is because Danny will probably do a lot. Danny's a genius, so she'll probably do a lot of talking. So whoever's talking, I'll switch back and forth. I just want to make sure, and there's no echo, so I don't have to figure that out. Look at us go.
Yay. Yeah, I've grabbed the headphones just in case, but because I think sometimes they help, but I don't know. Oh, thank you guys for the gifts already.
Yeah, guys, tap the screen, share the live. We're waiting on Danielle. She's in clinical, so she'll be here a little bit late. I just wanted to iron out any technical issues because, like we said, I'm new to TikTok Studio, but getting better every single day. Hey, Myth Lover, thanks for sharing the live. Share the live, guys. I think I have the
Well, and I
outline.
wonder if we all had a studio, if it wouldn't give us more options. Like, I don't know how that would work. Like, because I don't have it. Yeah, I mean, I have access to it. I just haven't used it. Um, like if I had that up on my computer, if I
No,
could, like,
how I understand it, yeah, and I'm sure that's on the engineering product roadmap. Like I used to work for a huge social media company, so like I'm sure it's on the engineering product roadmap. But right now, it's just whoever is hosting. So like next week, since we're all going to rotate hosting, I mean, it depends on how we want to do it. Like if you are hosting, you use TikTok Studio, and then me and Danny will join from our phones. It's only the host. Like when I'm debating with Pickles or whatever. I join his live through my phone. Like only one person can be on TikTok Studio, which is annoying because it would be
gotcha.
cool if everyone had the TikTok Studio features. I would love that.
Right. Right. Yeah. And we know, because I know next week I'll be out of town, but what I can do is while I'm out of town is try to play with that and see so that when I get back, I can maybe use Studio for mine too. But
Yeah,
otherwise, I'll
just
just use the normal TikTok live
yeah, it'll be fine. But
until I
I
figure it
mean,
out.
the good thing is because I mean, what I like to do, because I'm a Mac user too. You have to have a PC, but I love because you can, sorry, I need to move this. You can
Oh, so you
stream.
need a PC for Studio, not
You,
Mac?
are you a Mac user? Yeah, I had to buy a gaming PC.
Oof, I didn't know
But
that.
you
Because
can
again, I haven't used it, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can't use a Mac, which I am like a lifetime Mac user, so it's like that's really hard for me. And but I got a gaming PC, and the cool thing is though, I still use Apple products on TikTok Studio because you can cast like your iPad. So basically what I do is I just use my iPad. But yeah, it's I
Oh,
wish
sure,
you
that
could.
makes sense.
Yeah, I wish you could,
Okay.
but you cannot.
Is my audio okay with these?
Yeah, no, you sound really good. It sounds
Okay.
good. I'm gonna
Okay.
guys, keep tapping the screen, share the live. Hopefully, we will get some more people in here. Danny should be here in about 7 minutes, or she's running. She got done with clinicals at 11, so she'll be here soon. Hey, Zoe. I'm so excited. I don't know, like I feel like 2 hours I my outline's kind of intense, so, like we are not going to get to it and Danny could speak for 2 hours on all this stuff just on her own. But
Hmm.
the updates, like I want to go through the articles and I can. I wanted to go through the updates on Matt Gaetz, like, Trump's cabinet picks.
Yeah. I still love the meme going around about how it's not so much a cabinet as a junk drawer. It
I
really
didn't
is.
I didn't see that one.
You haven't seen that yet? It's like I don't
No.
really think it's so much a cabinet as a junk drawer. Like,
I think that's my
I was
new
like, that's about
favorite.
right.
A junk
Yeah.
drawer. I
I
love that it's
mean,
not gonna go through. Matt Gaetz has no hope now that he's been hacked, or that hacker has gotten a hold of. Here, I'll put this stuff up because I
yeah.
took screenshots to make it easier for us to see. Hold on one second.
Oh,
I
sorry.
know that's gross.
That was a
But
visceral reaction.
I'm not sure why. Hold on.
Ryan Waters.
I don't
Walters.
even have that up.
Walters.
Hold on. Let me close
I
mine.
also love
There it
that,
goes.
like, just to talk on that picture, I love that Oklahoma schools are like, yeah, no,
Ooh,
we're
what
not
is
doing
that?
that.
I
Like,
know
when
they were
he
just
tried to
like
send that
not
video out,
happening.
they're like,
I should play that video again. I should really be playing that video again and again because I can't believe it. But have you guys seen this? So, like, so this just came out. This was just like a breaking news. So, and I'll explain it because so there's a hacker. You know how there's all these rumors. There's the ethics investigation against Matt Gaetz. There was an FBI investigation against Matt Gaetz, which there was the actual in the Matt Gaetz investigation, the Michael Cohen in that situation, let's say who facilitated the S trafficking, is
mm-hmm,
another rich guy from Florida. His name's Joel Greenberg. That he was actually tried for
mm-hmm,
facilitating S trafficking. He is in jail for 11 years, but he's really the Michael Cohen, right? Like Joel Greenberg was facilitating S trafficking for Matt Gaetz, allegedly, right? So,
mm-hmm,
and then in addition to all those investigations, so there was an FBI investigation in Matt Gaetz. There was an actual trial for Joel Greenberg, who is in jail for 11 years. Then there was the ethics investigation. And separate of all that, right, is this what this hacker hacked. Because what it actually is, here's a gross picture of Matt Gaetz, just who we're talking
like
about.
if you ever just need to not like be excited ever, just think of Matt Gates. Like
Right,
dry
right.
as the Sahara at that point. You're like, I'm good. I'm
Exactly.
good.
No, and do you remember at the RNC, like right, it was like he looked one way and then the night before he spoke, he got a bunch of fillers and Botox. That's what I picture is Matt
His
Gates's
like
face.
his injector did him dirty, and I love them for that. Like there is no way they didn't know that that was going to give him like Spock eyebrows. Like
Some woman was like, I hate this man, and I'm gonna make sure he looks like
right?
a.
Yeah.
It was actually a Republican from the House. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Mike Waltz said he looked like a blow up sex doll when he gave his RNC speech. But okay, so anyways, the hack Matt Gaetz, the investigation that was hacked, right, is actually um so let me make sure I'm getting this right. There's a civil lawsuit that was brought, and it's somebody who is trying to sue Matt Gaetz's accusers. It's a man suing Matt Gaetz's accusers. Here, I think hold on, let me just get this right because I took a
Like in
screenshot.
defense of Matt Gates. Like he's trying to like.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in defense or Matt Gaetz, but here's what it is. So, but the hack trove of documents stems from an altogether different source, a civil suit being pursued by a friend. Okay, so it is a friend of Mr.
Mhm.
Gates. So it's a guy named Christopher Dorworth, who's a Florida businessman. So this guy filed a civil suit against both the women who were children at the time, who says that they had sex with Gates when they were minors. Joel Greenberg, who's was a friend of Matt Gaetz, who Matt Gaetz now pretends he doesn't know. Um, and then and so Mr. Dorworth has claimed that he was defamed by Mr. Greenberg and the women, both of whom told federal authorities that Mr. Dorworth hosted the parties. So this is the guy who had the sex parties,
Yep. Who's
who
already in jail,
no, Joel
right?
Greenberg's in jail. Greenberg is
Yeah,
in
that's what
jail.
I mean. Yes.
Yeah,
So
Mr.
he's the one
Dorworth,
who.
he facilitated the trafficking.
Oh my God. I
Yeah,
should know this. It
yeah,
gets very confusing.
he's the trafficker. Now, Mr. Dorworth is the guy who was throwing the parties where the trafficking happened, if that makes
And he's
sense.
the one who's filing this civil lawsuit.
He filed this civil suit saying, "Oh, all of these are I'm being defamed. This is all lies." But the best part is so Joel Greenberg and these two women are like, "No, none of this is lies, right? Like we can prove it's not lies. This all happened." So a hacker hacked the file from the civil lawsuit, and it says, in mustering their defense, because this guy's like, none of this happened, right? Lawyers for Mr. Greenberg and the woman have solicited sworn statements from others who they say were witnesses. The 24 exhibits attached to a motion prepared by lawyers for Mr. Greenberg and the woman in response to Mr. Dorwer's suit. So, in addition to the depositions from the woman who was a minor at the time of the encounter and the woman who said she was a witness, the hacked information also includes sworn testimony from Mr. Dorworth and his wife, as well as testimony from Michael Fisher, Mr. Gates's former campaign treasurer, who is also said to have attended the party. It also contains various supporting materials such as gate logs showing who entered the property of the Dorworth home on the evening in July 2017 when the two women said the sexual encounter with Mr. Gates occurred. So, like, the files haven't been released that they have, but this is the interesting part. Like, apparently, who this stuff is most damaging to is Gates. I mean, not
Right. Right.
surprisingly, right? Like, they are
Yeah.
saying that, like, but otherwise, it's said to be more damaging to Mr. Gates than to his accusers, according to the person familiar with the hack. That's why this hacker released the stuff, because Gates is like, "Oh, I wasn't there." I believe he says he wasn't
Yeah.
there. Well, these are gate logs of who came to the house. It's
Right.
yeah. So I
He,
mean,
he was there.
the jig is up on Gates, I think. And this is
Yeah.
something else I wanted to show you. You'll find this very interesting, I think, because this was originally, I mean, there's many different people who are breaking these or outlets who are breaking these stories. Hold on one second.
Yeah. I love how they're like any delusion that this stuff won't like somehow find its way to light. Like
I know.
they're trying to hide and bury all these things, but have they learned nothing? Like,
And I'm so proud of ABC News. You know, ABC News are the people that said we're not going to not fact check Donald Trump. Like they're also the ones that broke this story. So this is fascinating. So this is a lawyer for the two clients who's ironic. His name is also Joel. His name is Joel Leopard, right? Actually did it, like has come out and now, and these are the lawyer for the underage girls, right? And listen to this. I think we will all find this. Matt Gaetz is in a lot of trouble.
Says his client witnessed Congressman Matt Gaetz having sex with a minor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. That's where we begin with Florida attorney Joel Leppert just now sitting down with our Juju Chang to talk about his client's testimony to the House Ethics Committee. This interview now dropping as the committee is expected to meet this week to discuss whether it plans to release its ethics report, all centered around former Congressman Gaetz. Joining me now are Jay O'Brien up on Capitol Hill. All right, what else are we learning about the testimony from these two women, Jay?
Well, Kira, we know that the House Ethics Committee had been conducting this months-long investigation into Congressman Matt Gaetz, allegations of sex trafficking, allegations of sex with minors, allegations of illicit drug use, all things that Matt Gaetz denies. And we know that this investigation, while no longer happening because Matt Gaetz has resigned from Congress in order to become Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General, while the investigation has stopped, we've never quite known exactly what House investigators found and what is in this report that sources tell us was being compiled before Matt Gaetz resigned. Now we are talking to a lawyer who represented two women who spoke to the House Ethics Committee. He was in the room for both of those interviews. And here's what he said one of his clients told those House investigators.
At this particular event, what did your client witness?
So she testified in July of 2017 at this house party. She was walking out to the pool area and she looked to her right and she saw Representative Gaetz having sex with her friend who was 17.
Now, Matt Gaetz has denied he ever had sex with anyone under the age of 18 years old. We also know, according to sources, that a woman testified to the House Ethics.
Let's just stop it there for a second. What are you guys' thoughts? And welcome, Danielle.
Welcome. Hi, Dan.
Hey, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks for
Mandy, do you
taking
want to go
time.
first?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, again, I'm at this point where nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing surprises me. I think he's absolutely guilty of these things. There's just too much to suggest otherwise. I get a little down though, because like, are we actually going to see any repercussions? Like, will he be held accountable in any way? Do we think he'll become the AG? I don't think so. I hope not. But I feel like we continue to reward these predatory men for their behaviors in Congress and in the presidency. And it gets really disheartening to know that there is plenty of victims. This man has actual victims, and yet his buddy is trying to sue these victims. And they wonder why people don't come forward. Like, these were teenagers. These were kids. I have a 17-year-old daughter. The way I would land myself in prison the rest of my life if a grown-ass man came at my kid. Yeah. I don't know. That wasn't very concise, but
No, that was good. I think that's how I feel. What do you thoughts, Danny?
So I think that there's definitely, this was all very orchestrated, right? Like, this was orchestrated from the beginning. Matt Gaetz had a DOJ investigation against him last year. They closed that investigation sometime around February 2023. The crux of that investigation, like one of their core pieces of evidence for that investigation was Joel Greenberg, who was a very big associate of Matt Gaetz, who attended some of these parties with Matt Gaetz. Joel Greenberg got sentenced to 11 years. He just recently got sentenced to 11 years. Wow. Isn't it interesting how the two of them were like cohorts in this investigation? And he was one of the main people testifying in the investigation against Gaetz. And he got sentenced to 11 years. And the DOJ decided not to bring charges against him. They never, to my knowledge, have never made a clear-cut statement as to why. A lot of times, and again, something that we have to remember is just because charges weren't brought against somebody does not mean that there was not wrongdoing. It just means that the people that were investigating the case said, if we take this to court, we don't know if we have enough evidence to really substantiate a court case, and nobody wants to waste time, court time, taxpayer money, taking such a massive case to court if they're not sure that they can prosecute that and get a prosecution at the end of it. So they terminated their investigation against Gaetz. They didn't say he didn't do anything wrong. They just said that they were terminating the investigation. So then the House committee, the ethics committee, starts their own investigation. And 2 days before that report is supposed to come out, remember, the House ethics committee solely investigates members of the House. That's it. So if I'm a member of the House and I'm being investigated and I quit, they're no longer investigating me. Somebody else can, the DOJ can, right? Other places can investigate me. But if I am no longer a sitting member of the House Ethics Committee has to end their investigation against me. 2 days before this report comes out, 2 days before Trump nominates him as Attorney General, he does not have to resign. He doesn't have to resign, right? He chose to resign in order to accept this nomination of Attorney General. And at the moment he chooses to resign, that is the moment that the House Ethics Committee ends their investigation on him. 2 days before the report was supposed to come out. I don't believe in coincidences, at least not coincidences that close.
No, I agree. And that was my very first thought, was when they said he resigned immediately, like effective immediately. Like they knew exactly what he was doing, to not have to worry about that. Do you think that information will be leaked, even though they've ended that investigation?
Yeah,
I think
Okay,
so.
right. That's same.
I was talking about this, and Danny, before you joined, we were kind of covering. Well, no, you just did a beautiful job, but yeah, I was going over the leaked investigation stuff. I mean, if there was ever a purpose for Anonymous, right? I think there's such a time as this, right? Like, let me go back to that. This is the article that just came out, right? Like this is the guy, right? To prosecute, Matt Gaetz has a friend whose name's Dorworth, the guy who was hosting the S parties where these children were allegedly trafficked, right? He filed a civil suit to be like, these people are all liars. Well, Joel Greenberg, who's the trafficker, who is in jail for 11 years. Apparently, we don't put in jail the person who actually had, sex with the child, but the trafficker is in jail for 11 years. I like to call him the Michael Cohen, like in the Stormy Daniels case. Remember when Michael Cohen went to jail for Donald Trump's crimes?
Yeah.
Joel Greenberg is in jail for over a decade, but the actual person who had sex with the child, for some reason, there's no reason to bring an investigation. And I have screenshots to show this. Like, I could put them all up. I'm not going to bother, but in this article, I mean, in articles about Joel Greenberg's actual trafficking case, actually, let me find it, because I think maybe I should put them up. In actual articles about Joel Greenberg's actual trafficking case, what his lawyer is basically saying is, I'll find it later. His lawyer is basically saying is, hey, my client cooperated. You can look at the district attorney saying nobody has ever cooperated better than my client has. He provided more than enough evidence. Why are they not going after people like, they said people in power? He's indirectly referring to Gaetz. He's basically saying, my client provided you guys all of the evidence you needed. You also have 2 underage girls who are testifying to this. So why in the actual F did you not bring charges against him? And then Gaetz has a friend, the guy whose S parties these are, bring a civil suit. And then a hacker today has hacked that civil suit. And what's come of that is they are now saying, hey, this is most damaging to Matt Gaetz. Whatever that hacker has and whatever the evidence is in that civil suit, because Joel Greenberg from jail is defending himself. The 2 girls have a lawyer who's introducing evidence in that civil suit. And apparently it all looks awful for Matt Gaetz.
And those 2 girls, by the way, Joel Leppard, not Joe. Joel Leppard is the name of the attorney for those 2 women, and they're adults now. And they both have said, because I am one of the people that's always like, look, we have to look out for the victims, right? If they don't want their names out there, if they don't want their likeness out there, we have to protect victims. We are not a system that protects those that have been perpetrated against, right? But both of these women are saying they have told their attorney, and their attorney has come forward and publicly said they want this ethics report released. They want the world to know what Gaetz did to them. They want the world to know what was going on. So even the people that testified against him are saying, release it, make it public.
Amen.
Yeah.
I could not agree more. Mandy?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's what we're all waiting for is some accountability, right? Or at least so, and somebody said in the comments, MAGA won't.
Breaking
You're
news, a
right.
lawyer says his client
Oh, sorry, I
witnessed
did not mean
Congressman
to do that. That was an
No,
accident.
that's okay.
I'm just
Someone had said in the
mastering this.
comments while we were talking, MAGA won't care. You're not wrong. They're not going to care. But there are a lot of, I think we overestimate the volume of people in the country that are MAGA. And I say that lightly, I guess, but it wasn't half the US population. It wasn't even half the US population that voted in the election. Of the voting populace, we get what, a third of our voters that show up to the polls? I don't even know. It's definitely less than the majority. So the decision by MAGA, MAGA doesn't have to be, isn't the only one we're trying to get this information out to. It's respect. I think if that is what the victims want, they deserve to have that happen. I feel like let their stories be told. Too many of these men get away with these things because of power and influence and who they know and what they know. I mean, look at our current our administration to be, if you will. And I'm ready for any accountability. And MAGA be damned. I don't care if you listen. You elected a 34-time convicted felon who is an adjudicated rapist. I don't care if you believe it. It is clear that you don't care about that. You have no moral grounding at all. So I don't care.
God, preach. God, I'm going to love doing this show. I feel like, is this going to be therapy for me? Wait, there's much more in this video. So I feel like I'm at therapy.
So when she testified in July of 2017 at this house party, she was walking out to the pool area and she looked to her right and she saw Representative Gates having sex with her friend who was 17.
Now, Matt Gaetz has denied he ever had sex with anyone under the age of 18 years old. We also know, according to sources, that a woman testified to the House Ethics Committee that Matt Gaetz had sex with her when she was 17 years old and in high school, and he was a sitting congressman. Again, Matt Gaetz has denied that. We also know that House investigators were looking into Venmo records and accusations that Matt Gaetz allegedly...
Yeah, that's what happens. By the way Joel Greenberg is mainly been identified as the child S trafficker is because his Venmo was public. Matt Gaetz is paying Joel Greenberg for S trafficking with public Venmo. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
I feel like every time these stories break, it becomes aggressively clear that Republicans don't understand their electronic footprint. They literally will text each other, we're gonna do this really bad thing, okay? And it's just it never fails. I'm glad they're idiots that way, but still.
Yeah, don't make your stupid Venmo public. This is where they're at. I know someone needs to help them cover up their crimes.
It's kind of a funny anecdotal story.
Awesome.
It takes me back to when my sister passed 17 years ago, but she before that struggled with drugs and alcohol, and she and I laughed about this story after the fact because when she was using, she wrote a check to her person that she got things from. I want to be careful on language on live. She wrote a check for it, which ended up being traceable, and she did some jail time, I think 6 months. And I'm like, who writes a check? Even back in 2000, who's writing a check for that? They can follow that. And this gives that energy, right? This, we're going to track this through Venmo. What emoji did you use in that Venmo? I can't.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It's almost offensive to our intelligence, or it really what it is. And I'm not going to say this, but let's say Matt Gaetz is from Florida. The reason Matt Gaetz has a seat in Florida, the last narcissist I was trapped in a relationship with, he lived in Matt Gaetz, the 1st District of Florida. That's why Matt Gaetz is there. Daddy got him a seat in the 1st District of Florida, where, take a little walk around Fort Walton Beach, or what they call the Redneck Riviera, Destin, or Pensacola.
Y'all, I live here. This is where I live.
Forgot. Sorry, Danielle.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak
Gaetz is my representative. Y'all, it is not. This is the redneck. And again, for people that live here, I'm not saying that there are not wonderful people that live down here. We have amazing beaches. yeah, come here for spring break, right? Like our population increases by 30% every spring break. It's a great place to visit. It's not a great place to live. It is not a great place to live. Like unless you just love going to the beach all day, every day. I mean, you cannot leave your house there without seeing Trump flags. And we're not just talking about Trump flags, people. We're talking about the ones that they special ordered online that are 30 foot by 50 foot, and they're going to put them on their fence line. Trump flags, Trump flags, Trump flags. There are boatloads of men driving around their like lifted up pickup trucks that they ain't doing any fucking work in, and they're not picking anything up because these trucks are freaking pristine. You just want to roll around looking like a redneck. And they have a 3-foot Trump flag hanging off the back, which has to be impeding fucking traffic or some way, because you can't have dice hanging from your rear view mirror, but you can have a Trump 2024 flag that's 3 feet long hanging off the back of your truck. Like, it is insane here. It is insane. And when I tell you people fully believe conspiracy theories down here, like, you cannot get into a conversation with somebody without them saying that Biden is shipping illegals across the border on purpose. He's shipping people in to get him the vote. Like, the education here is really, really, really low. Our education in Florida, we have one of the worst education systems in the country. You cannot teach girls about menstruation or periods until their freshman year of high school, until they're 14. Consent, teaching of consent in sex ed is completely banned in the state of Florida. You cannot mention anything about consent or teach consent. Like, this is not the education capital of the world.
Didn't they do it with domestic violence also?
Yeah, you can't teach about domestic violence. You can't teach about dating violence and how to recognize dating violence. You can't teach about appropriate boundaries in dating and what are control tactics in dating. You can't teach about consent. And you can't teach about menstruation until they're 14 years old. So like, and teachers, like, if you have an 11-year-old girl in your classroom that started her period and she comes to you and she's like, you know, Mrs. Mandy, I started my period. You have to be like, I can't talk to you about that. You need to go to the nurse and have your parents called. Like, you can't teach them anything. So it is a purposeful thing, especially around here. And this is also the area where 2 years ago, I provide gender affirming care up here in the Florida Panhandle. I'm the only clinician providing gender affirming care in the Panhandle right now. And 2 or 3 years ago, the school board of Santa Rosa County had a woman running for school board and publicly on televised TV said, we have a clinician in our community that's providing gender affirming care. I think that any doctor providing gender affirming care needs to be hung from the nearest tree. The amount of death threats I got after that comment was so large, I had to leave my house for 5 days. This is the area that Matt Gaetz has control over.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, I wanted to say, like, I wanted, like, this is my experience, and like, I was a teacher, so, like, but also I was a child who was the victim of SA, and like, when you don't teach children younger, even prepubescent children, right, about their bodies, about what's healthy touch, what is unhealthy touch, you know, like, what's acceptable, you know, then you end up in a situation like me as a child who was being neglected, you know, didn't understand what healthy touch was, like, was craving attention, and you put children in a situation where they are ripe for abuse. You know what I, like that? I mean, that's my thought based on what you were saying. Like people, the way Republicans say, like, we're going to, oh, we can't talk to anyone about SEX. We can't. If you don't teach children about their bodies, then when somebody is touching them in an inappropriate way, then they don't know.
They don't know. Exactly.
I didn't know.
Like, you're creating an entire generation of kids who aren't going to know what consent. They're not going to know if they're being harmed, or they're not going to know how to speak out if they are being harmed. And the level of shame that they're going to feel because they have no understanding of what is happening. And that's all intentional. Like, if we raise these kids to not understand their menstrual cycles, if we raise these kids not to understand consent or abuse, you can force these kids at younger and younger ages to stay in these unhealthy, dangerous relationships or to carry pregnancies to term that obviously is not in their best interest. Taking away that knowledge takes away that autonomy. It really does. So like you have, it's cruel, and you see this in all of the red states where they have these restrictive education laws and they're like pulling education off the shelves from people. They have the highest amounts of teen pregnancies. They have the highest amounts of these kids, child relationships with, whatever, like that. It's a direct correlation to lacking that education and that information.
Go ahead, please.
No, that's it. I was just going to say thank you for saying that, because I think it is a lack of education. Go ahead, Danny.
It's a lack of education, and it's intentional, like Mandy said, because I think on that, because you were talking, Mandy, you're like, the bodily autonomy and like forcing people to give birth or stay pregnant. I think it's worth noting as well that the Republican Party and MAGA has this overarching belief that your body does not belong to you. So while we sit here and we say bodily autonomy, right, which for anyone that doesn't understand, the reason that abortion is a piece of bodily autonomy is because until you can exist as an autonomous being, right, outside of my body, you do not have bodily autonomy. I have a right to bodily autonomy, which means my body is mine and I get to decide what to do with it. So if you can't exist as an autonomous person, you do not have the right to use my body, my tissues. MAGA does not believe in bodily autonomy. Look at what Mike Pence said. Mike Pence said every woman in America has a duty to birth one able-bodied worker. They believe that your body belongs to your husband. They believe that children's bodies belong to their parents and their parents get to do whatever they want with that child's body. They believe that your body belongs to God. Your body belongs to the government as a worker. Overall, MAGA has this problem with bodily autonomy. They do not believe that your body belongs to you. It belongs to everybody else except you. And especially if you're a woman, your body surely does not belong to you, which is where we're seeing this whole your body, my choice narrative coming out. And we're seeing a lot of men saying like, LOL, as if you had a choice. They don't believe your body belongs to you. They believe your body belongs to men.
Yep, exactly.
I literally could not agree with that more. Kaner said it's an exaggeration. Kaner, you're not a woman. You enjoy bodily autonomy, right? Like that is one of the things that actually was Kamala Harris when she was in the Senate asked Kavanaugh during the confirmation hearings. Can you name a case? Can you name a legal precedent in the United States where men's bodily autonomy has been violated? And he said, no, I can't think of one. But every single day, women's bodily autonomy, our ability to make choices about our bodies individually, is being violated. And then I have to listen to someone in the comments say, oh, that's an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration. Do you understand what bodily autonomy is? It's being able to make decisions about your body without fear of coercion or violence, right? And if you live any place in America and you are not able to do that, then your bodily autonomy is being violated. No, and someone said, "Bob it." Listen, again, that's a misunderstanding of bodily autonomy. So I'm gonna say it again. Bodily autonomy is my ability to make decisions about my own body. Now, if someone aggresses and just attacks me, yeah, that's a crime. That's a crime that needs to be prosecuted. That has nothing to do with bodily autonomy. Bodily autonomy is saying, hey, I make decisions for my own body and people can't coerce me or use violence. If that does happen, then sure, a crime has been committed against you, and then a criminal investigation and trial ensues.
And I do want to note that there is, so first of all, the person saying Bob it, like, you cannot be that dumb. I refuse to believe people are that stupid. Like, if you really thought that was a comeback, I have very little hope in America as it is, but that might have been my last shred, just floating away, folks. However, there is, right? So I'm a researcher in misogyny in the US. It's one of my specialties. It's what I got my PhD in, focusing on abortion care and bodily autonomy. And there is one singular law, and every once in a while, men will bring this up. So I'm going to bring it up before somebody else does. There is one singular law, and if anyone knows it, drop it in the comments, that does regulate men's bodily autonomy in the US. There is one. And I don't see anything in the comments, so I'm
I
going
feel
to
like
tell
I
him.
know, but I'm going to let you say.
I think, Mandy, someone just got it. The selective service. It's the
Yep.
draft, right? Which, by the way, we haven't used for over 50 years.
Yep.
It was last used right around the time that Roe v. Wade was put into place. And feminists don't support the draft either. Just to be clear, none of us support the draft. We believe in bodily autonomy. We don't think that they should be able to force anybody to be in the military. And also, let's not pretend that the draft was based on misandry. It's based on misogyny.
Yep.
Y'all wouldn't let women into the armed forces. Women weren't even allowed to be in combat roles until what, 2016, 2013, 2016, something like that, right? That was based on misogyny. It was based on the fact that women were so weak and so gentle, they couldn't possibly handle being in the military. That's why you have the draft. You don't have the draft because the country hated men. You have the draft because the country believes that you are nothing but little worker bees for their military industrial complex. And because they hated women so much, they wanted them to stay at home. So feminists don't support the draft, but the draft wasn't made out of misandry. It was made out of misogyny. So Y'all made the draft. Women were not in power when the draft was made.
Right. And like we've said many times, like if you don't like the world you've created, you only have to look at yourselves. Like this was not decided by women. Women weren't making that decision when it was created or when it was challenged. Because I believe it was challenged, and it was an entire male court that said, well, no, women can't be on the front lines. Women can't be in combat. So we're not going to draft women. And they always come to that. Like, that's always if we have to do selective service, and these are bros that have not been alive. So I'm like, dude, you are 30 years old. You didn't even exist in a time when it was ever used. Like, what are you talking about? And they always go to that. Like,
Kaner, I don't know what you're doing with the misogynistic comments in the comments. They hated women, so they didn't make them go to war. Huh? Did you listen to anything that was just said? It was not up to us. We did not enjoy the same rights as men at the time. It's not but a few decades ago, we couldn't have our own bank accounts. We couldn't have credit cards. We couldn't accumulate wealth. We couldn't own a house without a cosigner. We didn't have the same rights as you. Do you understand that? Like, what is confusing? It is women that fought to be in combat roles. I had someone ask me, like, how do you feel about the draft? If men need to be drafted, then I think women, I'm fine with being drafted as well. I'm 100% fine with that. If there is selected service, I don't think it should exclude women.
And let's clear up, I want to clear up what misogyny is, because this is how you can see how uneducated men are. Right? Women are the most educated demographic now. We outnumber men in college, in undergrad, graduate school, med school, law school. Men are horribly undereducated in our country. And this man is a very good example of that. Because men think often, and a lot of people think, to be fair, misogyny is not the hatred of women. That is your bare basic definition in a dictionary. No definition in a dictionary is meant to encompass the total context and actual usage of a word in the real world, because the dictionary is one or two sentences to give somebody a very broad, vague idea of a word, right? Misogyny is not the hatred of women. Misogyny is the control of women. So if you think of the patriarchy as this overarching system, misogyny is patriarchy's law enforcement arm. It is deployed to keep women in line. It is deployed to keep women in their place. So while misogyny does at its core stem from a dislike and a degradation of anything female or feminine, in real life, in action, misogyny is the control of women. So saying women are too fragile, they're too gentle, they have to stay home, they can't go to war, that's misogyny. That is control of women. Saying, oh, women are meant to stay home and take care of children because that's just how they naturally are. That's using pseudoscience, evolutionary biology and pseudoscience, and outdated gender roles created by men. That is misogyny used to keep women in line. Bodily autonomy, abortion. That's misogyny used to keep women in line. So anytime you think of misogyny, people are like, well, I don't hate women. I can't be a misogynist. If you're making jokes about how women need to get back into the kitchen, that's keeping women in her place, in line. That's misogyny. So all this man is doing is displaying how uneducated he is on these issues. And if you're uneducated on these issues, maybe you need to shushies a little.
Yeah, agreed. And then let's not forget that the men now who are using the selective service as their bargaining chip of like, well, you know, if you have your right to have abortions, then you should be in the draft. They're threatening women again to control them. They're trying to use the draft as a way, as a threat, as this existential threat that, well, you're going to be drafted. I hope you're ready to be drafted. And like, I'm like, bro, the closest you're going to come to active duty is Call of Duty. But by all means, continue to tell me that I'm going to be drafted and I, you know, should be scared. Like, no, but they are again using that. They're using that to Danielle's point, to control the narrative, like to scare women into, oh, you're right. I shouldn't have the right to my body.
I should stay in line.
No, but
I should stay in line or I'm going to be drafted.
But think about this too, like, because this is something. Yesterday, I was on a live with Facts Don't Matter, who's fabulous, with Daniela Young, who I don't know if you guys know. She wrote a book called Uncultured, Knitting Cult Lady. Do you know she was in the army? She was a captain in the army, and she was speaking to this because another misogynist / rapist that Trump has appointed to another cabinet position is Pete Hegseth, right? Like, this is a guy who just last week is on Fox News saying women don't need to be in combat. Like, we don't need to be threatened into combat. Women are voluntarily in combat right now. And so, like, which disproves the point, which Daniela was saying, I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of women, about 20% of the army, right, are women who are voluntarily involved in it. And then and then Pete Hegseth is saying we need to take women out of combat. Right. And what Daniela was saying, which, God, we should have her on the show because she's absolutely fabulous, was that what they found when women were in combat was the diversity of combat teams is actually what's important. Because, like, can she drag a 300-pound man's dead body weight out of combat? Maybe not, but she can fit through a smaller hole. Right. So the diversity of combat teams actually made them more effective. But if and when, like, I just want to point out the fallacy and like the collapsing of that line of logic to say, oh, you guys are lucky, we're protecting you from the draft. We don't want to be protected from absolutely anything. So you can break off, you can miss us with that BS. And the second thing is then, if women are currently in combat now, why are you trying to remove us?
Yeah, he did say that he thought women were a distraction.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, if you can't do your job because there's a woman standing next to you, maybe I don't want you in our military. Maybe you're not the kind of, you don't have the character or the morals to be in our military.
That's not the fault of the women. Like, let's be clear. Right. That's not our problem. I mean, that can take us right back to things like, you know, dress codes, also grossly, you know, imposed on girls and not boys in schools to control the actions of the boys or the male teachers. It's the same logic, right? It's ridiculous. Like, you cannot continue to blame the people who are simply existing for your inability to control yourself or not be distracted.
Exactly. Is it what I'm wearing, or does someone need to teach men to respect women and stop leering at them? I mean, which one is it? Like, was I attacked because of my outfit, or was I attacked because men have an idea in society that they have a right to women's bodies?
Yes. And I think something to bring in some research in case anyone's interested in that, something we have been looking at is that we know, based off of like NASA research and sending women to space, female bodies are actually better suited for high altitude environments. So now the military, who often gets a lot of their research and a lot of their like aerospace data and stuff from NASA, is now taking that information and researching how women can be better pilots at high altitudes. So I pulled up the research for you, just some quick stuff. The reason that women's bodies, let me rephrase that. The reason that female bodies do better at higher altitudes is because their environments compared to men due to factors like their higher body fat percentage, which can help them burn fat more efficiently at high altitudes, potential differences in their vascular response to hypoxia, and leading to better oxygen delivery in low oxygen environments. So actually what we have found, thanks to NASA, which it's a relatively new finding. It's a couple years old, but NASA, who didn't let women go to space for forever, then started doing it. And they were like, it's actually cheaper to send them to space, and their bodies are better suited for it because female bodies are better suited for high altitude environments than male bodies. So what we're actually finding is that there might be some massive benefits at putting female pilots in some of these high altitude jets.
So, Dania, are you suggesting we use evidence-based science?
Yeah, why would we do that?
That's
silly. I'm sorry.
Crazy. Why would we do that?
Insane. That's silly. The Republicans don't like science. What am I talking about?
I know we should finish that Matt Gaetz video, but in the meantime, since we're on, this is the guy that says women shouldn't be in combat. I agree. Who also said women are a distraction. I mean, it seems like women distract him, and then he assaults them. Do you know what I'm saying? Are women? Is a woman? It seems like the woman he allegedly raped and paid off, right, and forced to sign an NDA. Which, by the way, I just want to show you guys something because I find it absolutely hilarious. This is Ron Filipkowski, who's a former Republican researcher, now the head. Who's crinkling something? It's
me. I'm so
Man,
sorry. I'm
desperately.
I'm
mute.
I didn't mean to. I was desperately trying to get a throat drop because it's fine.
I was like, okay.
And I had my hand in it and I was holding it and I couldn't. Yeah, sorry. I'm done.
No, it's fine. I was just like, what? I was wondering if you were typing. No, so this is Ron Filipkowski made this point, but I think it's great and it's good to understand the actual what happened. This is not, again, I know Mag is like probably some liberal woman falsely accusing Pete Hegseth of grape. No, they were at a conservative conference in Santa Barbara. This is a Republican operative who was responsible for his drunk ASS, to get him back to his hotel room, right? And so Pete Hegseth's attorney, who by the way is a Trump attorney, I don't know if you remember Timothy Parlatore, but the one who's spewing this BS is a former Trump attorney that has now been assigned to Pete Hegseth, and says that this is the story. Pete Hegseth's lawyer, who's Timothy Parlatore, publicly the past allegations of sexual assault against him, quote, "She was the aggressor. She was sober. He was drunk. She took advantage of him." This is at a Republican conference in Santa Barbara. So now let me just, because I think Ron Filipkowski does a great job of breaking down this logic. So the guy who preached about, quote, eroding values as the main problem in America, this is Pete Hegseth, has 7 kids with 3 different women. When he allegedly raped this woman, was in fact married, right? Including a child with someone he had an affair with, which I'll just tell you was his Fox News producer, and also had paid for an NDA on the other incident where the woman claimed he raped her to keep her from speaking publicly about it. Now, you ask me this. If the story is that she took advantage of him and you were in fact raped, do you force your rapist to sign an NDA and pay her off so she won't talk about it?
It doesn't make sense to me.
Some sense. You're the victim. You were raped, but you paid off your own rapist and made her sign a contract saying to never admit she raped you? Can somebody please make some sense? I'm tired of being insulted, my intelligence being insulted. Why is everyone Trump is appointing to this cabinet an SAer? Oh, let me show you guys something else, actually, because there's a great article that came out. Actually, I think I'm just going to go to the article.
But those traditional family values.
I know. Hey, guys, it's all about family values. It's family values. That's what this article is about really, actually, is pointing out, You guys, Republicans are they're evangelicals and they're about family values. That's Mike Johnson was 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 often.
I'm sorry, you're gonna find
Y'all would
you're
blush at my search history.
You're gonna want to turn those notifications off. I'm just
It's good. You guys are gonna be like have to have an intervention for me.
you're gonna be like, God damn it, Mandy.
Here it is. So this is what it is. Jake Tapper says, with some of these nominees, Gates, Hegseth, RFK Jr., we can get into what RFK Jr. has done to women if anyone wants to. I talked about it, I think, last week on my show. I wonder, does it matter? And this is a quote from Jake Tapper to Mike Johnson on Sunday morning political shows. I wonder, does it matter anymore for Republicans to think of leaders as people who are moral in their personal lives? Is that still important to the Republican Party? Right? That's what he's asking. And then Johnson says, quote, sure, it's an important issue for anyone in leadership, before quickly pivoting to how such picks would shake up the status quo and be disruptors. Now, so I want to make sure we understand that line of logic. That logic is, hey, yeah, these are rapists. These are child traffickers. These are people that have horrifically hurt women, but they're disruptors. What kind of world am I living in? So I like what I'm not talking to anyone here. I'm talking to the women that voted for Trump. Do you understand the line of logic? They're saying it's okay they attacked women because they're disruptors. Now look at this. This is the interesting part of this article that gets really crazy. So among those who has Trump sought for powerful positions, it goes into detail how all of these men have attacked women, basically. Gates, we can go through the video, but we went through that, the 17-year-old he had sex with. So New York media have reported for years about allegations of RFK's extramarital affairs, troubled personal history, for which Kennedy said, right, his babysitter, he had a babysitter when he was an adult man who was not an adult, who said that he attacked her. And his response to that was, I have so many skeletons in my closet. If they could all vote, I could run for king of the world. Like there's another quote, like he texted the babysitter basically, and it's like, I don't remember that, but if it happened, I'm sorry.
And let's be clear, like this kind of stuff, I want to be clear about who the actual disruptors are, right? Because MAGA are not disruptors. They are compliance makers. They're pissed off because the real disruptors in our culture have been the women. The real disruptors in our culture have been women saying, we deserve rights. This is bullshit. The real disruptors in our culture have been LGBTQ people saying, we exist. Stop taking our rights away. The real disruptors have been people of color saying Black Lives Matter and we want our police to stop unaliving us, and we want police to stop seeing Black and brown people as immediate threats. Those are the real disruptors. So Republicans have kind of curated this message of like, we're the disruptors. No, you're not. You're the compliance makers. You're the ones that have come back in to put everybody else in line so the white patriarchy can have power again, because you're the ones that are bringing back that make America great again. That's not disrupting. You want to bring back the white supremacist patriarchy that you had before. We're the disruptors.
Daniel, God, don't make me love you any more than I need.
Breaking news: a lawyer says his client witnessed Congressman.
I think we need to finish the Matt Gaetz thing because we cannot not finish this because it's disturbing.
Clients testified that both of your clients testified that they were paid by Representative Gates to have sex.
That's correct. The House was very clear about that and went through they essentially put the Venmo payments on the screen and asked about them, and my clients repeatedly testified, what was this payment for? Well, that was for sex.
We also know this attorney says that his clients told the House committee that they witnessed parties, that there were illicit drugs allegedly there, and then, of course, that they witnessed those alleged sexual encounters that Matt Gaetz has denied. Matt Gaetz has pointed to the fact that the Department of Justice investigated all of this and declined to bring criminal charges. And this hour, we are also learning that we have a statement from a spokesperson for the Trump transition team. Again, Matt Gaetz has been named as Trump's pick for Attorney General. That's why these allegations are getting renewed scrutiny and additional light. Here is what that statement says. I'm going to read it to you in full here, Kira. Quote, Matt Gaetz will be the next Attorney General. He is the right man for the job and will end the weaponization of our justice system. These are baseless allegations intended to derail the second Trump administration. The Biden Department of Justice investigated Gaetz for years and cleared him of wrongdoing. The only people who went to prison over these allegations were those lying about Matt Gaetz. Again, that according to a spokesperson, that statement rather, from a spokesperson for the Trump transition team. Kira.
So the House Ethics Committee is supposed to meet this week, supposed to meet on Wednesday. So as all of this starts to break and we're hearing from this attorney and we're getting more details from this attorney, I think that only adds to the pressure on the committee to release this report, its initial investigation into Matt Gaetz' behavior.
And there has been that pressure from Republicans in the Senate, Kira, on the House Ethics Committee to release this report. There are Republicans in the Senate who have said they want this report, or at minimum, they want to know what is in this report officially from the House Ethics Committee. They want to know what those House investigators found into Matt Gaetz before the Senate were to take up the aspect of his confirmation, before they were to hold hearings on the possibility of his confirmation, before they were to hold a vote. And we also know that Speaker Mike Johnson has said that the House Ethics Committee doesn't have jurisdiction in a way over Matt Gaetz anymore and doesn't have the ability to release this report because in Johnson's view, Matt Gaetz is no longer a member of the House and therefore.
Again, I spoke to this yesterday. There have been many ethics reports that even though the person resigned, they released the report. There have been two I cited yesterday on my show. One was where a man just had an affair. And he resigned over the affair, and they thought it was so necessary for the American people to know that this man had had an affair that they released the report. So saying that anything Mike Johnson is saying, which by the way, the story was he first said, I have no jurisdiction over this. I can't control what the ethics committees does. Then he was caught on a hot mic saying the opposite, saying, I highly suggest you guys bury this report. Right? That's what happened. And the only thing that happened in between, and I showed this yesterday on my show, was that he spent a night at Mar-a-Lago. He went down to Florida, talked to Trump, came back. He had a press conference on Wednesday, went to Mar-a-Lago, came back Thursday, and was singing a different tune.
Shocking. Thank you.
It's absolutely absurd what these people are saying.
Or the House Ethics Committee doesn't have purview over matters related to Matt Gaetz because he's no longer a sitting member of Congress. This is potentially setting up a clash, Kira, between Republicans in the Senate who have said they want this report or at least the salient facts in this report, and the House, which has said potentially that they don't want to release this. We'll all see what the committee says on Wednesday. But up until today, Kira, we had somewhat of a hazy picture of exactly what was in this report. And now we're learning key details about what this attorney alleges his client told these investigators and what presumably might be in this report, Kira.
Well, and you and I talked last week, even with our Rachel Bay, that even if the committee decides not to release this report, that more than likely someone's going to leak it anyway.
I just had to hear that part because it's looking that way, right? But I want to add something else that, I was, doing research as I'm always doing about what's going on today, and Matt Gaetz and Trump have been making calls to Republican senators. That's what's being reported today, saying that Matt Gaetz wants the chance to defend himself in a Senate hearing, that maybe they won't release the report, but they can call these witnesses and basically shame them. Do you know what I'm saying? Think about Kavanaugh. Think about the witness. They're basically planning. I'm calling it now because I want everyone to hear me what they're planning to do. This is going to be a Kavanaugh hearing. That's what they're setting it up for. They're saying, hide that report. Don't release that, but call these women and we'll shame them. Like, right? Kavanaugh had an accuser show up to his confirmation hearing saying that someone was like that he raped her in high school, right? And is someone snoring?
What is that noise?
I was just about to put in the chat. I have a 240-pound dog. He's snoring. He's snoring behind me.
I know. I'm like, is that something in my space?
A
Like,
200.
sure.
I was like,
It's my
it's like
dog.
the dog from the Never-Ending Story. I was like, what?
Has anyone's ever seen Sandlot, the movie Sandlot? It's the dog from the Sandlot.
Police, I have to say, like, you said that, and it made me laugh because this was my first TikTok shop purchase ever. Was my little, my little, what did I call my emotional support Falcor?
That's so cute.
It's not a Cane Corso, it's an English Mastiff. Someone said it's a Cane Corso. I said, no, it's an English Mastiff, but he wants in. Hi. Oh, hello. Good morning. You're snoring. Thank you. He's awake now.
I think it's adorable, though, that he was snoring so loud. Like,
he's so loud.
Cute.
Can we address the incident that happened in Maryland? Because I think like one of the other things we want to address on this show, and we've been talking about addressing, and this is a working title. I think the broadcast is a great idea, but if we want to change it, we can. I just thought I needed to have some heading, and I think it was received well when I mentioned it on Fax's show. But one of the reasons, like, we passionately believe that like the future and who we need to speak to is women, right? Like women can flip an election, right? And I think that that's what we need to, like, who we need to reach, not only because we've lost younger men. Well, let's say we're 2 years away from the midterms, 14, 15-year-old men before they are, 16-year-old men before they are red pilled. Who has access to them? Who is talking to them every day? Certainly their mothers, right? And this incident, a big W for the name, like absolutely. Oh, you sent a logo? Cool, Gregory. Thanks for making a logo. Yeah, I was going to tell you. I think, Gregory makes the best logos. Yeah, if you will send logo ideas and or stickers, whatever, like we would definitely love them. When Mandy and Danny, we have a group chat. We're discussing what we want to talk about on this podcast. This article, Chrissy, my mod, was so nice to send me this article, and essentially, I don't know if everyone has heard about this, but a young black boy in a school in Maryland, and there's very few details available about this, was essentially hung in a bathroom.
So I've dug on this one because there's been a lot of bullying. Someone had made a comment, and I do totally agree. Someone said she lives in a totally different area. Like the area of Florida she's describing is a different area than I live in. That is absolutely true. In Florida, the further north you go, the further south you get, right? Like the Florida Panhandle is Alabama and Louisiana, y'all. That's what it is, really. So up here, we have had, there's the Panhandle here is a handful of counties. The counties that exist here have had a massive uptick. Massive. It is devastating uptick in racial slurs and your body, my choice being said at school. They've had kids say to black kids at school, have you gotten your assignment on the plantation yet? Have you gotten your orders to go to the plantation yet? You're going to be a slave just like you used to be. Like the horrible things that they're saying to kids, right? And then we're also hearing a lot of this, like your body, my choice. So I had a discussion with the school boards yesterday where I said, like, you need to handle this. These are hate crimes. You're treating it like it's bullying, and this isn't just bullying. And I brought up that case as an example of something that happened. And we're also aware, this is not in the news, but there was an incident in Washington where a child was actually essayed on, a male child was actually essayed on a school bus. And the boys were doing it to this child because the child was a theater child and, the boys picked on him. And so he was essayed on a bus. We're talking about 11-year-old boys on a bus at school, going home from school. And the boys were saying, your body, my choice, your body, my choice. And they did this to another little boy, right? So I used that example. And in the example that we have coming out of Maryland, this was a 7-year-old boy. And it was, I believe, 10-year-old boys, although I'm not sure, slightly older boys. that were bullying him in the bathroom. And the quote that the mom got from her son, the 7-year-old, was that the boys essentially said something to the effect of, "I'm going to do to you the way my people used to do." And they hung this little boy from a hook in the bathroom. And it was actually like a teacher or the administrator. The boys were in 4th grade, someone said. So that's where I got like the 10-ish year old, right? And the victim was in 2nd grade. So these are slightly older boys to a 2nd grade boy, hung him from a hook in the bathroom. And it was a school administrator that walked into the bathroom and found this little boy hanging there, foaming at the mouth. And they called 911, and the boy, this was from Maryland. Someone said, where was this? It was in Maryland. They called the mom and said that the boy was going to the hospital and that it was horseplay.
Yep.
That it was kids doing just horseplay, kids just playing around, and it had gone too far. That is not horseplay. That was essentially the school doing boys will be boys. No, this is a hate crime. And so what we've been trying to discuss in the school districts down here is that, like, you're going to end up on the news. If you don't do something, if you don't nip this, you're going to be the next school district on the news because something like this happens. And if you don't give a crap about these kids, you should give a crap about ending up on the news.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I cannot agree more. Like, it's so disturbing. If you read this, yeah, like, I mean, you know me, I like to have the receipts. Literally, that's what happened. She said it was horseplay. They gaslit the parents and said, "Don't worry, it's horseplay. If your kid's foaming at the mouth, hanging, he has petechial hemorrhaging, which is signs in Schmurder investigations that you, in fact, have been strangled, right? He's black and blue under the eyes because the blood vessels in his eyes were, in fact, bursting." And like, this is the quote that Danny was just quoting. "I'm going to show you how I did people back in the day." And as a former teacher, like, I was a 2nd grade teacher for 2 years. I can tell you, like, anytime, and you hear the most disturbing things coming out of young children's mouth. And I'm not thinking, hey, like, this child is, because I before I say this, I was raised in a extremely strict evangelical household, right? When I started saying, "Hey, I think I like girls and boys," my parents said that I was possessed by the demon of homosexuality and I need to have that prayed out of me, right? And so that's what I'm saying. As a teacher, I never was thinking, "Oh, this little boy is possessed by the demon of anger. We need to do something." What I think is, wow, imagine what this kid is hearing at home. Imagine the language. Imagine what is happening to this child, right? Like, that is what immediately comes in my mind. I know that what this 4th grade boy is doing is wrong. You should not be hanging kids and strangling them from hooks. But that didn't come from that 4th grader.
Right.
That might just be a night at his house. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I can tell you, like, when I was younger, that is something that happened in my household, right? Like, I'll tell you that to my little brother, and I had to get him down from a hook. So that's, I think, why it's so disturbing to me, because it makes me think, I don't think something's wrong with this 4th grader. What's he up to? I think, hey, either he's mirroring behavior, he's repeating things that he has heard. Why would he think that, violating someone's bodily autonomy is okay? Because I have friends who are amazing mothers, right? And they're gentle parents who are teaching about bodily autonomy, and that no one, including an adult, should ever violate your bodily autonomy. You don't touch someone unless they give you permission to be touching them. So the idea, I think I was reading, just like you were, Danny, I was reading different comments, like, underneath these stories. Because at first, this is a Washington Post article, but they weren't reporting on it at first. At first, it was coming out in these local little Fox News stations, different stations. And the comments underneath were people saying, "Oh, what's wrong with that child? That child needs to get out of the school." Like, the question is, what's wrong with the parents of the child? But and this is what it is. Horseplay, that's not just horseplay. But again, which I get, because I worked in a school, they're saying we need to wait for the investigation to come out. I understand that. But it says, I have seen comments online stating that the school and CCPS are covering up what happened. This is not true. The principal nor the school system are hiding anything. Rather, we are sharing what information we can while we conduct a full investigation. I worked at a school. They're protecting themselves from a lawsuit. They're trying to anyways, but to use the word horseplay, right?
Yeah.
When a child is literally it has petechial hemorrhaging, is black and blue underneath the eyes, is foaming at the mouth, and is found by a teacher. If that's not gaslighting, I'm not sure what is.
Right. Well, and how schools and how adults in these situations respond will dictate the future for these kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like how they intervene, because if you continue to just boys will be boys, it's going to continue to escalate. And you can only boys will be boys to a certain extent. And yet they keep sort of moving the goalposts on that, right? Like there was a time when boys will be boys would have been pretty benign. Never okay, but fairly benign, but it's escalating. So now this idea of, like Trump saying, grab them by the, women saying, oh, that's just locker room talk. Boys will be boys. No, like that's the problem is as long as they continue to get away with these things, or they're insulated or they're gaslighted into believing it was horseplay and no big deal, they will continue to escalate, and the excuses will continue to be made, because rather than take accountability and realize we need to raise these boys better, they'll just continue to make excuses because patriarchy and misogyny and the ability to blame the victims versus taking responsibility and, changing.
And listen to this. So I think this is important to note. Like what happened was the mother was told, oh, your son's choking. Get to the hospital. Your son's choking. Right. And this is from her. The student's mother said she was at work when she received a call from the school that telling her that her son was choking and had to be rushed to Children's National Hospital. It wasn't until she arrived at the hospital in a room filled with nearly 10 trauma doctors. If there are 10 trauma doctors in a room, something has happened. Like you can't get one you're lucky to get one doctor in a hospital. There's 10 trauma doctors. And she said with nearly 10 trauma doctors that she said she learned her son hadn't choked on food at lunch. He had been strangled by his clothing. Like, I mean, and I don't make me bring up bell hooks, but I mean, we were going to have a roundtable discussion. I think we have about 45 minutes left. Maybe we'll get to it. But one of the questions I was going to ask is like, what feminist authors do you like? Like who speaks to you, and I just want to say, I love bell hooks. She writes a ton of feminist books, but the one that really motivated me and interested me was actually The Will to Change, which is not a book, which by the way, feminism is just about equality, right? It's not some like pro-women movement. It just says, hey, we want to have the same rights as men. But bell hooks was nice enough to write this book, not for women. This has nothing to do, it's for men, right? And it's called The Will to Change. And it's about, it essentially is telling men that you are the first victims of the patriarchy, not women, right? We are the second victims of the patriarchy. You are the first victims of the patriarchy, and you are damaged in the patriarchy, and the SHIT, let's say, rolls downhill, right? It's about punching down in the patriarchy. Like that's how you gain status in the patriarchy. It's essentially inducted into the patriarchy. Men are through things like violence. How would a 4th grade boy know to be hanging someone from a hook, right? Men are the first victims of the patriarchy. And that's why I say, like we were jokingly saying, like women need to get their sons before they end up down the Andrew Tate, like red pill pipeline, because this is not something a 4th grader should know to do, right? And like that's part of what this show is about. It's not just we want to speak to women, we want to speak to women, how women are being damaged, but we also want to save young boys, right? Because bell hooks is absolutely right. Like if any men that are listening, this is an amazing book. If you haven't read The Will to Change, like you are essentially the first victims of the patriarchy, right? Like you never should have been inducted to the patriarchy. You never should have been taught that you had to be manly, that you had to use violence, that you had to use coercion. And if you didn't, you lost your value in society. right? Like, and it starts at such a young age. This 4th grade boy has been taught, right? I have to exert violence. I have to exert power. I have to punch down, and that makes me safer. That will give me status in society. How did he learn that?
I think it's interesting, as we were talking about, like these kids learn this at home, right? And we're looking at this going like, what are the parents saying at home that these kids are saying these things in school? And just like it is on us to teach our kids empathy, right? It is on us, and we know who the empathetic party is, certainly not the Republicans.
Right.
It is on us to teach our kids empathy, to teach them to see other people as people, to teach them to see differences and accept those, right? It is on us to teach our kids empathy. And these kids are being taught cruelty, right? Rather than teaching these kids empathy, they're being taught cruelty. And I have this bell hooks quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's from this book. And every lecture I give about men and masculinity and the patriarchy, I use this quote. And this is a quote directly from that book in Bell Hooks. She says in the book, "The first act of violence that patriarchy demands of males is not violence towards women. Instead, patriarchy demands of all males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves, their empathy, their emotional intelligence. If an individual is not successful in emotionally crippling himself, he can count on patriarchal men to enact rituals of power that will assault his self-esteem."
God, that is what happened to you, men listening. You were the victims of the patriarchy. Either you kill off your empathy, you kill off your ability to put yourself in other people's shoes and say, "Hey, that wouldn't feel good if I was treated like that," or they will do it for you, right? In a very violent, uncomfortable way. Guys, keep tapping the screen, share the live, and everyone share the live with 5 men. I think like that is what's most important, is like we want men to be allies. We want men to understand like it's not just women. You were the first victims of the patriarchy, and every man who has ever grown up, you remember the first time you learned it's not okay to cry, right? Men don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Every man remembers when they learned that their emotions were unacceptable.
And I want men also, like all the men in here that are saying they're allies, that's great. I love it. We love our male allies, right? I don't just want you to be allies. I want you to be traitors. Because if you're an ally to women, that's great. But I want you to be traitors to the patriarchy. Because if you sit here and you say to women, like, I've got you, I believe in your rights, I believe in bodily autonomy, I will fight for that, that's great. But are you when you hear another man say, your body, my choice, are you standing there and going, absolutely not? No, that's disgusting. Why would you say that about women? I want you to be traitors to the patriarchy. It's not just enough that you are allies to us. That's great. We appreciate it. But you're not going to change anything until you are a traitor to the patriarchy out there in the world and you start calling out other men when you hear this stuff. So yeah, be an ally, but please be a traitor.
I'm feeling so good about this show. We're going to make such a difference.
This is our therapy, y'all. Like, if you saw the 3 of our group chats are like, we need to do something with the feminine rage.
Really?
If people saw our group chat, we'd probably be in jail.
That is why it is our safe space. It is our little safe group chat.
And go ahead, Mandy.
But I always tell men, in a lot of my videos, you've probably heard me say it. I'm like, when I'm speaking on issues, I will say, come on, guys, like the patriarchy does you dirty too, right? It teaches you that all you have to bring to a relationship is a wallet, and not evolve, and not be a whole person, and the problem is that as we evolve and we live in a capitalist society where who the hell can afford one income, right? In a relationship, in a household, and women do work and women do have independence and women are the most educated and are able to provide, I always say, bring their own table. You're going to have to bring more than your wallet. Like, and that's where you have to evolve beyond that. But the patriarchy did you dirty. That is one of the greatest tools of the patriarchy is convincing you that all you had to bring to a relationship was financial, support and protection, even if that protection was not protecting anything but yourself. And so a lot of times when men get sued, because they get really upset at this idea, right? They still love to fall back on that. We're just gold diggers. Oh, if you don't care about men, then don't take anything from them in a divorce, as though there wasn't shared labor in that relationship, as though the woman wasn't probably carrying majority of the at-home labor in that relationship, and possibly not making any, money for that work. They immediately jump to that because they don't want to go outside of that comfort zone of like, this is all I have to bring. This is why they see men who cheat as differently than women who cheat. This is why all of these are because of the patriarchy. This isn't misandry. This isn't women being hard. You are a product of that. And if you can't evolve past that or be a traitor to that, to Danny's point, you aren't going to find yourself very happy with, at least with a partner, probably. Because women are seeing through that now. Also, we literally have to work to afford to survive. So
yeah, we
this
need
idea
dual
that,
income households. Preach.
Yeah.
This is also why, oh, sorry, Mandy, go.
No, I'm done. I'm just babbling.
I think that's also why we see like this. So like Mandy said, if men have to give up that whole, we protect, we provide that. If you have to give up that narrative, then the challenge for men is they have to give up what they've been taught is their self-worth their whole life, right? So now we're talking about an identity crisis. Now we're talking about men going, but if I don't have this narrative, what am I? This is also why men hate on men like Travis Kelce. Now, I have my own critiques of some of the things that the Kelce brothers have done, and I don't think that they've done enough to stand up to patriarchy and all of that. But aside from that, that's why they get so pissed off about Travis Kelce, or I can't remember, I think it was Zendaya. Someone's dating a man and they just had this beautiful photo where she looks fabulous and he's shorter than she is, right? But he treats her like a queen. It's a famous, I don't think it was Olivia Rodrigo. Regardless, they hate men that treat their women well because it shows women that not all men are like them. It shows women and it makes them, maybe it was Tom Holland. I think it might have been Tom Holland. Someone said Tom Holland, pretty sure it was him. So men hate on men like that because these men are out there in public treating their women like human beings, treating their women like autonomous beings who get to wear what they want, say what they want, have their own successful careers. And that is a threat to those men. It's a threat for other men to see that because they know they can't live up to that bar. And it's a threat because they're afraid women are going to see that and be like, I deserve to be treated that way.
Absolutely. Well said. Very, very well said. I think the next thing I just want to show this, and I know Danielle was just in London all week, but I just want to show this is yeah. So, and also all these resources are in my Discord in the live sources section, or wait, no, they're in a different section. I think we made a section for the broadcast. Sorry, Chrissy just told me that and I messed it up. I think we made a section for the broadcast, and all of these resources I'm showing, this is an actual study from a place called the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. They've been tracking the rise of hate in the manosphere. This is something Danielle does. I was telling her about this study. So any clips, any articles, anything you've seen me cite will be in the broadcast section in the Discord. If you want to join the Discord, just send a request to @FelizNavidad.live. That's a TikTok account, and we will get you there, or say something and the mods can help you. But I just wanted to show this because I find it so interesting. I think this study came out on November 8th, a couple days after the actual election. So in the past 24 hours, there's been a 4,000, I hate how it resizes. There has been I don't want to mess up the chat. I know you guys, I hate putting white backgrounds near the chat because I know it's hard. If you can't see, I'll just read. So in the past 24 hours, there has been a 4,600% increase in mentions of the terms "your body, my choice," which is something Danielle mentioned, right? And "get back in the kitchen" on X. Similarly, misogynistic language. This is a direct result. This is a quantitative analysis of the rise in hate against women after Trump was elected. I just want to be clear. This is a quantitative analysis. This is facts, right? Similarly, misogynistic language, such as the use of dumb, see you next Tuesday, to target Harris. Television personalities such as Rachel Maddow and others received more than 64,000 mentions on X from more than 42,000 accounts on November 5th. On election day, right? And they specifically, Nick Fuentes, an influential white nationalist who I think we all knew, right? Oopsies, I got to do the puzzle piece thing, or am I live? One sec. Okay. Yep. 4 days in a row of my live not accidentally ending. Okay, so here we go. On TikTok, female users are reporting, so we're all on TikTok right now, right? That accounts are commenting "your body, my choice" en masse on their posts. Have you ladies experienced this? Mm-hmm. I know I have. Right? Trump won the election. All of a sudden,
well, and I sent you guys that message I got.
Mm-hmm.
That DM I got.
Tell everyone. Or do you want to summarize it as best you can?
So I received a DM in the crux of all this and I know I wasn't the only one. There were a couple other large creators who received it that just said, "Your body, my choice, BITCH. I'm gonna, when I find you when I see you in the street, I'm gonna RAPE and unalive you, and you're not safe anywhere. We'll find you."
That's about the tenor of the messages I get.
Yeah. So and I was like, oh, good. Yay. That's fun. And I mean, I've gotten various forms of like threat, like subtly threatening, or like, oh, you should watch yourself, or why do you, oh, you BITCH, you think you're so smart, but wait till someone finds you alone. But this one was particularly graphic, and it was sent out en masse. And it sort of felt like the same as the people who are receiving, like the Black Americans receiving the plantation texts. It seemed like that kind of bot system targeting like leftist and liberal women.
These are bot farms, exactly.
It's still very unsettling when there's somebody behind it. There's always somebody. There's some source, something driving the decision to send these, right? Like, even if it's not just like Joe down the street who's like, "I'm going to send you this angry message," somebody's still behind it. And so it's unsettling. And as we watch it continue to escalate, I don't know about you guys, but I'll let you speak. There is a part of me that feels a little more in danger than I maybe did before. Like, I've never been one who lived in fear of things. I live in the middle of kind of nowhere, and yeah, it's a red area, but like, I'm really confident people sort of leave me alone. I'll share this to you guys because I got the text while we were on this that it's now at the sporting goods store where I can pick it up, because it was purchased in Minnesota, but due to legal GUN laws, I have to pick it up in Wisconsin, which was fine. I have decided to have a hand version of that in a safe in my home, and we'll be getting my conceal license, just because there is that small part of me that has become grossly aware of how unhinged these men are getting. And I'm like, I may never carry it. It may end up in a safe and stay there, and I sell it in a year or 2 years or 5 years, whatever. But right now it's like, these are self-defense things. I have people in my life that are very smart and are training me. I'm not going in anything careless, but I'm making choices that if you had asked me 2 years ago, 4 years ago, when Biden won, and I thought, okay, I would have said, no, I'm not going to do that. I was never going to do that. What are you talking about? And now here I am going, I want to be able to protect myself or my kids or my home. Like,
and a piece of, go ahead, Mandy, go ahead.
No, that was it.
A piece of this ISD, which you might be going into it, Felice, as well. A big piece of this that didn't hit the news as much, right? You saw some of this on the news where it was like a 4,600% increase in Your Body, My Choice. They also saw a 663% increase in hashtag repeal the 19th, which is repealing women's right to vote. Both of those things I saw hitting news articles. What you didn't see hit news articles that came out of this study, and the reason that the news didn't pick it up is because a lot of them were like, ugh, that's a little bit too dark. The men be getting dark, folks. So one of the things that we saw was this massive increase in, I'm trying to think of how I can say this on here, of like SA threats and stuff, right? On X, Twitter, because I love to dead name that man. on Twitter, they saw groups calling for grape squads. Like, there were literally men on Twitter calling for grape squads. Because now they're like, oh, women think that they have rights. You don't have rights. And Andrew Tate posted on November 7th, I saw a woman crossing the road today, but I just kept my foot down. Right of way, you no longer have rights. Another person posted, women threatening SEX strikes, like laughing my ass off as if you have a say. That post was viewed 10 million times and shared 22,000 times. Tate's was viewed 2 million times. What was that? No, I'm sorry. 688,000 times in under 2 hours and was shared. Like, this is the narrative of men in America right now. And if there's men here that are like, no, that's not, be mad at those men. Don't be mad at us. Put your anger where it needs to go, because there are literally men online calling for SA squads to go out there and teach women a lesson.
Thank you for subscribing, Emily. Guys, please subscribe, like the live.
Did you guys hear that?
Was that okay?
Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Sorry, that was a puzzle piece thing. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that's something also that is obviously very. I mean, I have a 17-year-old son and a 20-year-old son, and I've raised them. So they are trying to be accomplices. And I mean, like, I literally told my oldest son's girlfriend, I'm like, he ever acts out of line, you tell me. Like, you let me know, because no, I raised him better than that. And she was like, no, he's a total gentleman and he cares about me and all of that. And he's still a product of patriarchy. So like, he's not going to be perfect, but I worry about the young men that are, because they're getting this before they can even vote. Like, it's infiltrating them in so many ways. And just like the dangers of corn being their first experience with that, like, this sort of rhetoric just creates such, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's very concerning to me, what this could mean.
Facts. Thank you so much for the Venmo. It's an amazing show. Thank you for what you do and for your incredible guests. Thank you, Facts. And soon we'll have you on as an ally, because you're the best.
I think it's also worth noting that, like, think about when, from a psychological perspective, right? Think about when they're getting these young men. We know that the bulk of young men that are getting, like, sucked into the manosphere right now are generally below the age of 25. There's definitely some that are in that, like, 25 to 35 range, right? None of us had, like, peak relationships when we were, like, 14, 15 years old, right? They're generally very emotionally immature. They can be very jealous. They can be very, like, on and off again, break up. They can be very fickle. Maybe you'll date someone for 3 months, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's very age appropriate, right? We're talking about adolescents that are figuring out who they are, what they want, what their own morals and values are moving forward, right? All of this is very age appropriate. But then you get these manosphere guys that are like, is that woman not appreciating you? Did you have a crush on that girl and she laughed at you? Women are that way. All women are that way. Did you have your girlfriend break up with you? Did she break up with you for a hotter guy? Did she break up with you for another man? Did she just say you weren't good enough or whatever? Like, they're grabbing these young men at the point that they're having their first relationships, which women didn't have great first relationships either, generally, right? And a lot of times when you talk about adolescent boys' poor relationship experiences, they were laughed at, they were made to feel embarrassed. When you talk to very young women about their first relationship experiences, it's often violent and controlling. So it's not the same thing, but notice how that narrative from the manosphere sounds so true to a 17, 18-year-old boy who has this much experience with women in relationships, right? but it sounds really good to them. Because when you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, you can sit back and be like, huh, women really are that way, aren't they? And I've asked out like 3 women and they all said no to me. And it's so easy to grab these adolescent boys like that.
God, that is such a great point. I love it. I know. And there's so many different channels for it, right? Like, and I speak about this because I used to be in the tech industry, specifically in advertising, right? And like, what people don't understand is MAGA is born of the gaming industry, right? Like, it was a gamer to MAGA pipeline, gamer to alt-right YouTube pipeline. That is what they did. They made hundreds of billions upon billions of dollars delivering these people advertising. Well, you know, it starts at gaming, then you see a Ben Shapiro video, right? And they go down this pipeline until that is the advent of MAGA, this cottage industry built around the far right, right? That is where it came from. So if you're wondering how your sons are getting there, it is a literal gamer to YouTube alt-right to MAGA pipeline, right? And for the women, like, you wonder how you end up like as an anti-vaxxer. It's this granola yoga spirituality, right? I'm a seeker. I'm looking for this.
Getting into your feminine, your divine feminine, which is just sexism.
Kundalini yoga. Yeah. Like,
I miss the days when like the anti-vaxxers were just the weirdos that nobody listened to. Like you were like, oh yeah, they're the one family that has to homeschool because they won't get their kids vaccinated. Like, that used to be weird enough that people like did aspire to that, you know? Like, and yet now it's just like the idea of, we won't even get into it today, but the idea of our kid, yeah, like those were the good old days when that was not the norm.
And I think
you mentioned video games.
Go ahead. In the service of delivering advertising, we're now targeting young kids on video games and driving them towards the YouTube alt-right pipeline. Well, YouTube, and that comes from, this is why when I worked in the tech industry, if you wore a Republican hat, you would have been thrown out, right? Now you see the rise of MAGA hats in the tech industry lobbying, bought parts of the Republican policy platform because they want deregulation. They don't want they don't want the industry regulated. And that's what you have to understand, and understand that this advertising is being delivered. They're making billions of dollars. They don't want to regulate it. So now they've switched sides.
You can hear your dog.
I know, y'all. He's so a big snorer.
It's cute.
Hey, buddy. Well, he's dreaming and he's twitching now.
Oh, don't wake him up.
Sorry for interrupting, Mandy. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to say it's interesting that to piggyback off the video games, it's interesting that in Project 2025, they literally want to do away with video games. And yet, obviously, that would grossly affect their base.
That's a great point you just made, because this is something I wanted to point out. Like, Trump is actually appointing a lot of people to cabinet positions who are very actually critical of the tech industry, and are those people that you're saying, the people who are Project 2025 architects that want to regulate tech. But it was tech people that funded Donald Trump's campaign. So like, that is setting it. Thank you so much for subscribing, My Mental. Appreciate it, guys. Subscribe, like, share. Please gift our guest. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here. And we'll rotate hosting every week. But yeah, like, that is a battle that is being set up in real time, as he's appointing people to cabinet positions and other positions that hate the tech industry, want to regulate it, want to put an end to video games and cord, and then he's being funded by these anti-regulation, free speech at all costs tech bros. So, I mean, that is setting up a battle royale that we shall see. Oh, look, Danny, it is what you mentioned. I did include it from that study. A subset of narratives were threatening women with S assaults. ISD found 5 posts on X that called for grape squads, the largest of which had 18,000 views and came from the phrase, "Your body, my choice." Yeah. The other one is repeal the 19th Amendment, right? Like that's a big one as well. Posts calling for the repeal of the amendment increased by 663% compared with the week prior. The top 10 or the top X posts at the time called for the repeal of the 19th Amendment. That is basically saying that women should not vote if you're not familiar with the 19th Amendment.
And we even like a lot of these. Part of the problem is that young men see men in these circles being promoted and getting good things, right? Like, so we just saw Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. I mean, I didn't. I refused to watch it on principle. Both of these men have, first of all, Mike Tyson spent time in prison for SA.
What? Remember Robin Givens?
If no one has,
remember when he?
It was so
I was
strange
just
to me.
going to her.
He beat
So
him
many
with
nobody
a
has
show
seen
for
that.
life. Does anyone remember that?
I do. I
If
didn't
no one
watch it
has
either.
seen, if no one has seen the 1988 interview with his wife, Robin Givens, go watch it. He is literally sitting over her, staring at her, staring her down, daring her to say too much, while Barbara Walters, who I have my own issues with, while Barbara Walters is asking her, like, does he hit you? And she's like, he gets in my face and he gets very aggressive and you can tell that this woman is terrified. After she gave that interview, nobody helped her. Nobody said, oh my gosh, poor Robin Givens. She literally became and was on the front of like Times Magazine, the most hated woman in America. Why was she the most hated woman in America? Because she dared to say something against Mike Tyson. Then later, so he's a known domestic abuser. Later, Mike Tyson spends 3 years in prison for SA. Jake Paul has been accused of SA more than once, I believe. And Jake Paul is an offshoot of the manosphere. He's one of those men that got famous by performing his hyper-masculinity online. He is a manosphere bro. And now young boys are seeing men like him, men like AT, advancing. They're seeing them not get held accountable. They're seeing them not only not get held accountable, but make $20 million on Netflix, right? And now they're seeing manosphere bros like JD Vance, who 100% is a manosphere bro. Trump in this entire campaign was run on hypermasculinity and the misogyny of men. And
Are you muted? Or can you hear
No,
me?
I think she froze. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you need to rejoin, Danielle? I don't know if your internet went off. Thank you for subscribing, TikTok Addict. Maybe you're requesting because.
Yeah, I don't know.
Should I just drop? And Danny, do you want to request? Oh, there she is. Okay.
There we go.
There you are.
It took a minute. Long story short, men aren't being held accountable. And then young boys and men see this, and then they think that they don't need to be held accountable, right? They think that, like, why would I change? All of these men that have these horrible views get benefits in life. They get to run the country. They get to make $20 million on Netflix. They get all of these good things. So how can it be a bad thing? These men aren't getting consequences. They're not getting punished. Like, how can that be a bad thing?
Which is kind of perfect. It takes us very full circle to where we started talking about Matt Gaetz and like not having that report not coming out and what needs to happen next, right? Because you're exactly right. We are sending a very loud message to these boys and these young men that you can be the literal worst kind of human. You can be a adjudicated rapist, a convicted felon, a child SAer, and you can still be promoted and still make millions of dollars and still be in power. Like, that is not a good message to be sending. That is so unbelievably dangerous.
Think about Trump.
Sending,
like, how do you tell your child? Think about a mom. How do you tell your child not to essay a woman, not to be vile, not to commit 34 felonies when he's looking at a president of the United States who continues to fill up, who continues to commit felonies right to the top, who continues to who's an adjudicated rapist, found guilty or found liable by a jury of his peers, and continues to rise to the top. Like, you tell me how how we message that with young men. Like, that's why we have to start so early, right? Like, that's why we have to appeal to mothers and give them the tools to speak to this, because I mean, that is what we're up against. It's like, hey, all men are watching is men abuse women and rise higher and higher in the ranks.
We need women to definitely, like, yes, moms, but also dads. Like, you should be talking to your sons about the content that they see online. You should be, because we do need male voices countering this. Like, obviously women still do the bulk of the child rearing in this country, right? But it is something special when it comes from a man, especially when you have manosphere bros saying, like, you don't have to listen to anything women say. Women are just really these emotional creatures. But it's so easy for young boys to just forget about what their moms say or write it off because of these manosphere bros. But if they have men in their life, if they have their dad, if they say your body, my choice, and their dad goes, that will not be tolerated in this house, and this is why that will not be tolerated in this house, don't you ever let me hear you saying that again. That means something. Uncles, brothers, I don't care who it is. If you're a male teacher, like, pull that shit up. Pull these young men and boys up on this stuff. Don't just let them skate by. Don't just roll your eyes and be like, oh, boys these days. No, it doesn't have to be this way. It definitely doesn't have to be this way.
Do you guys want to do like, since we're down to like the last 15 minutes, do you guys want to do 15 minutes of questions? Like, because I know we've had some people requesting during the time. Are you guys open to that? Ask.
Yeah, I could do an extra, if we have a lot of questions. I don't know what Mandy's schedule's like, but I could do an extra 30 if we wanted to do 45 of questions. If people have a ton of questions, we could.
Yeah, because
I could probably stay on for an extra like 10 or 15, but I have to get to.
Yeah, so. Okay. Well, let's do a couple questions, and I'm gonna quick. Hello, JP, are you there? Nope, I don't know if
I think we lost him.
Yeah, or he might not have requested. Here we go. Got one. Hopefully it will load.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I am a woman that is proud of being a feminist. I don't shout it, I guess, in the workplace, but I was fired because I was supporting women. I was encouraging the young women to use their voices, and the boss over there did not like it, and so he fired me. Also, now that I'm in a new job, I work with a houseless population, or with people that are addicted and needed housing, things like that. And so now I have a new boss that doesn't want me to talk about like the things that are going on with my clients, but it directly affects them. So how am I supposed to just like work and do my job, you know, with these people like in danger of losing their housing and going to internment camps? Like, what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? It's just really hard to like live like this, you know what I mean? And I was hearing these guys in my office. I work with two men in my office, and they were just like talking up Joe Rogan like it's fucking nothing in there. So those are the guys that I'm dealing with, you know, and it's just hard. Do you guys have any advice on what I can do or what I should do? Like, I guess to just kind of survive. I don't know.
I think we're just all trying not to talk over each other right now. Don't worry. So in terms of the men that you work with, and this is a difficult thing to say, and everyone has to figure out where they are, right? But like, it is not our labor to teach men like that. It is not our labor to bring men over to our side. These men don't want to be. So if they're going to be willfully ignorant, if they are not interested in learning about, like, you can tell men all the time, you know, the majority of women think that if you listen to Joe Rogan, it's a turnoff, or it's the red flag, or 100%. It's right. Like, you can tell men this all day long. They don't care. They'll sit there and be like, what's wrong with Joe Rogan? To say that. Well, what do you think?
But they're allowed to go over there and talk about Joe Rogan and all the great things he does. But I can't bring, you know, anything up from Project 2025 that's about to affect my clients, because that's political.
So I'm always telling people, like, protect your peace.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's completely insane. And it
think
shows
I'm
you
gonna have-
what our culture values, right? Our culture values male
Well, he told me
voices,
that
and our culture
those are big
values.
fish problems, and we're in a small pond. That's what he told me. These are big fish problems, and we are in a small pond. Don't worry about it. That's what he told me. So
That's the dumbest
I
thing
feel
I've
like I
ever
have
heard,
no voice
honestly.
that clearly.
Yeah, that's
Ever.
ridiculous.
These rooms.
No, I don't think you're going to get through to them, obviously. I think with regards to your clients, it's really a matter of, taking it right now. We're all sort of navigating this to see. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this is all going to play out come January 20th. But I think the best thing we can do right now is control what we can control. And that is just, taking it a day at a time, recognizing that we're not there right now. So hopefully,
Okay, well, I'm trying to do that daily, so I guess I'm just gonna have to learn to keep my mouth shut. I have a thing of just saying how I feel, you know what I mean, right away, and they do not like that. So I will just keep quiet until I really need to speak. Then I guess, and that's so unfortunate.
I
and
would
sad.
use
Isn't
your
that
voice
really
in this
fucked up?
space that matter.
Yeah.
It's super fucked up, but again, like, women need to protect their peace. Don't expend your energy. Like, it's not about I need to keep my mouth shut. It's about I need to learn to use my voice and preserve my energy for the places that it's going to matter. And then
Yes.
do the labor from you. Do these men deserve you expending? Because it takes something from us. That's something that we need to realize is when you're talking to someone from a position of privilege, for them, this is just a debate. This is just an intellectual debate. They don't have any skin in this game. For you, you're arguing for your humanity. So it takes a lot of emotional labor and effort for us. For them, they're just like, whatever, we're talking about sports, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
It's about protecting and preserving yourself too, right? Like, it's infuriating, but protect them. Don't think of it as keeping your mouth shut. Think of it as, in order for me to make the biggest difference and in order for me to impact the world the way I want to, I need to protect myself, preserve my emotional energy, my intellectuality, all of that, to speak in the places where I will be heard. Otherwise, it can be harmful to yourself, right? Because you're going to just beat your head against the wall. And I've been there. I get it. Preserve your energy for the people willing to hear you.
Let me just add something to I'll drop you down and then we'll add the next guest. But I wanted to just add to that. Like, I agree. Like, preserve your energy. Like, think about like what is going to keep you fighting for the next day. And yeah, I always like to say that's why I was hesitant. I do debate sometimes on TikTok, but that's why I'm hesitant to enter debate, right? When you talk to there's this amazing Oxford professor, this woman who I talked to, who she, really taught me debate is rooted in white supremacy, right? Like, and when debate was started, only white male landowners could participate in debate. And when you look at and then the minute that anyone raised their voice or showed emotion, right, you would say, that's not debate. You have to remain calm. You can't have feelings. But that's because white male landowners' lives weren't in danger, right? Like, I'm debating for my life. I'm debating for the right to exist. I'm debating as, part of the LGBTQIA. I'm debating as a woman. You are trying to marginalize me. You are trying to socially engineer me out of existence. So excuse me if I care or I am passionate when I am speaking, right? Like, so keep that in mind. Yeah, I agree with everything Danielle said. Like, yeah, I would be able to not care either if, regardless of who was president, regardless of what policies passed, nothing changed in my life. Oh, and let me let the next guest up. And then I just want to read also. Thank you so much. Sully said, I love this new super group and I love you, Felice. Thanks, Sully. Love you too. And Robert Rogers says, Felice, great show. Women in my trade get treated like crap. We need the young brothers to step up and speak up for our women. Yeah, I'm assuming you said women, but I agree. I worked in the tech industry. It is 90% male. Also, J-Hop, thank you for subscribing. Guys, subscribe, like the live, gift our guests. I appreciate it so much. Oh, Dawn, are you there? Sorry. Dawn?
Hi, Dawn.
Dawn? You sound far away.
I am. I'm running to my
there you
phone.
go.
Hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. Follow the voice. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Hang on. All right. Oh, are you good?
Yep.
Why can't I hear you?
We are here.
There you go. We can hear you. Sorry about that, guys. I've been listening to you and sat in my car so I can wax it. And I literally just put my phone on the charger like 3 minutes ago. I was like, I bet you anything, I'm going to get over there. I'm here. Delta Dawn. Anyway, hey, I think what you guys are doing here is awesome. I've been listening to you, like I said, scrubbing the car. Just so many thoughts going through my head. And I'm loving this. I do have a question, though. My daughter, who, I'm not going to lie, I'm completely indoctrinating her as a feminist. Just, it is what it is. And she's 11. She really wants to go to the Women's March in D.C. I don't mind that, but I'm a little bit nervous because she's 11, and I don't know how things are going to go down. And I'm wondering if any of you guys have been there, if you have any thoughts on this, or anybody in the comments. Like,
it's so weird you bring this up. We have been talking about this in our group chat. I'm probably, if I earn enough money on TikTok from donations and stuff, I think the three of us want to go to the Women's March in DC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go. It's only like 5 hours from me. You know, that's a drive. I love it. But not going to lie, I'd probably get a place. But I'm worried about bringing the 11-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, are we worried about any dangerous shit? Counter protesting bullshit? Like, that's my 11-year-old. I got to think about that. So I've gone and I've done a lot of stuff with the Women's March before. I've spoken at a Women's March here in Florida before. They usually have pretty good security. Decent. It's not, it's not perfect, but it's decent. There's usually counter protesters. They're usually kept separate from the actual march. Like, they're kind of allowed to do their thing like on a side street, or they're allowed to kind of line up like outside of the normal march sort of perimeters. So I've never been to one where there weren't counter protesters. Usually they're like anti-choice counter protesters. They generally keep people very separate. I personally have never seen a protester and a marcher like get into it with one another. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. One thing I will say is that sometimes people have said that, like, after the march, as people sort of start disseminating throughout DC and stuff like that, that's when some things can kind of start to pop off because you're getting outside of so if you don't want to hang around right after the march is over, just start disseminating, right? Because security will start doing the same thing. I don't think 11 is too young, right? Girls have their periods. They're hearing about these things. They're learning about these things. They're seeing this stuff. I've definitely seen younger at the marches. I've seen 6-year-olds at the marches. Nothing crazy is going on at these marches, y'all. These aren't like we're not. Well,
we're not
things
providing
are
like
now, and that's what I'm wondering if anybody is like wondering
the
if
safety
polarization right now. Are there any rumblings?
It's something I'm concerned about, right? I am concerned about safety, right? I think it's something that we always need to be concerned about. I think it's something that it's on January 18th, right? So it is the weekend before the inauguration. It is that way on purpose. You have to keep in mind what kind of people are going to be in town for the inauguration. Also, low key, please, we're asking all Democrats to request tickets to the inauguration. You can do it for free. Go to your senator's website. You can request tickets for the inauguration. All Democrats, please, I want you to request tickets to this inauguration because I want those seats fucking empty. None of us are going to show up. Please request your tickets for the inaugurations today. Call to action.
I'm never going to tell a parent what to do with their child. I think you have to, Someone said, like, don't use your kid as a prop. I don't think it's using kids as a prop. Your child is asking to go. Your child wants to be involved. I think that's a great thing. I think you have to have a conversation about safety, about risks, about what the climate might be like going into an inauguration weekend. You might have a local march close to you. There's marches all across the country. That might be a good, like, compromise. Hey, I think it might be a little bit too dangerous to go to the big one in DC. Something might happen. How do you feel about going to a local march instead? So you, only a parent with a conversation with their child, if the child is old enough, can determine where their risk threshold is, right? I'll let you as a parent determine where your risk threshold is. I'll tell you it's something the Women's March is aware of and that they will try to, obviously we always are trying to mitigate risk. It is going to be a risky march. It is on inauguration weekend. So, like, just weigh that.
I was giving people that advice. There are you can just Google Women's March local events. There are local marches as well. It is going to be near the inauguration, so you just have to keep that in mind as a parent. Like, I think Danielle's right.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell anybody else what to do with their kid and if they're safe. Robert, and guys, when I let you up, just mute if people are talking, please, because backgrounds in your microphones. Robert, I sent you an invitation to unmute because I had to mute you just because there was background noise. Robert, did you unmute? I'll invite you again to unmute. Oh, Robert, I sent your microphone's muted. You can unmute it. Okay, there you go. I think you unmuted. Robert, are you there? I think you remuted yourself.
Muted.
You unmuted for a second. And then remuted her. I'm just gonna. We have to cycle through people. Like, just request again, Robert, and I'll let you up, I guess, in a second. I'm just gonna go to the next guest because, like, I want to make sure we get to people. Sorry. Hi, my mental.
Hey, excuse me. Sorry, my voice is really scratchy. No, this is great. Police, I followed you, and I don't know where I saw you originally, who's panning you around, but no, I just stumbled upon this live. You guys are great. My wife minored in women's studies, so I've been with her since I was 15. So I'm 45, so I kind of know a thing or two in this arena. This is amazing. I just shared you guys with all the powerhouse females I know because this is great.
So much.
I live in South Carolina. I have a trans son, and a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. My 14-year-old, she was like 9, went to a local protest march with my wife. It started her own chant in the line, and everybody was going with her. So I think the guidance of, I think Danielle, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes.
I think that is perfect guidance. Locally might be the way to go. I believe that empowering your kids, you got to go with your gut. Like you said, you can't tell someone how to go, but at the same time, it's like, it's okay to teach them young. Like I grab, like you're talking about all these topics, I grab as many of the men that my daughter brings home because I got to meet them all at some point. You know, I got to look them all in the eye and I got to say, hey, these are my rules. You know, you don't do these things together. And I tell them why. I'm very honest. I understand what they're going to do and what's going on. But once I do that, they start to listen to me because I feel I'm safe. And the amount of information I'm able to tell them, not only about how to treat people, but also how to be a person, let alone a quote man in this world. They're there, they're listening. So there are people that have a voice, even though it's hoarse like mine, but we're out there and I'm trying, and my oldest 2 are adopted. They're both biracial, full biological siblings, adopted at birth. My youngest is a biological, and me and my spouse are YT in South Carolina on the coast, where it's redder than red, where it all started. Let's put it that way. Not the docks, but it's a very, very toxic environment. So a lot of the things you talk about, I try and keep up with it as possible because of my daughter. But the things that she says that these people say to her, I'm like, listen. But she also, I respect her, and she's like, Dad, because I used to start preaching in public. I used to cause problems with other gentlemen looking at my daughter. She's 14. I used to be very, but she's like, Dad, it's my body, and if it's not bothering me, don't make me feel uncomfortable because of it. I said, whoa, okay. I said, fair. I never looked at it that way. So if it's not bothering you, I'm not going to run to school. I'm not going to start a fight. I'm not going to do anything just because it bothers me and I think it's wrong, I'm not going to make her feel uncomfortable about it. She needs to handle it herself. So it's like, let me know when anything involved if I do. As long as you're safe and okay, I don't really care. Are your intimate social experiences positive? She said, oh, Dad, she talks about body count to me. She's 14. My friends are like, WTF? I'm like, are you having safe experiences? Sorry, I'm
Thank you
rambling.
so
I'm not-
yeah,
I'm
like
not
just
wrong.
we
I
just gotta
know.
move on.
I know,
But
I'm sorry. I'm not,
thank you
that's
so
some
much
bad,
for it.
that's
Sounds
bad
like you're a
habit.
great dad and you're
That's
doing an
Yeah.
amazing
sorry.
job, and we appreciate it. Yeah. And
Bad
guys, if
habit.
just no, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And have your daughter watch the show. And thank you for sharing the live. But guys, if you have a question, just let us know. Oh, sorry. I should have let the next guest up. Here we go. Just try to keep it brief. Like we've got to keep it. We're just trying to cycle through people. Thanks, guys.
Hello. Can you guys hear
Hey,
me?
girl.
Okay? Hi. I'm just going to pop up really quick. I wanted to touch back on the Women's March. I typed it in on Google. You just go to Women's March, and one of the first things that pops up is find one locally, so like the closest one near you. And then when it comes to kids, there's a book called The Pink Hat by Andrew Joyner, and they wrote it after the first Women's March, and I've read it to my daughter for years, and she's curious, so I'm going to find my local one and take her to it, and yeah, she's 6, not 11, but we're not going to the DC one, so it should be okay. I just wanted to tell you guys, if you have kiddos, to check it out. It's called The Pink Hat.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so
Love
much.
that.
You're the
Thank you.
best.
You're the best. Have a good
great
day, and thanks for doing this.
You're
Thank you.
amazing. I love her. Literally. Quite literally. I love you. Stop asking what's going on.
Oh, just another day in paradise? Is this paradise?
I know.
If it is, we're in trouble.
Right, right. I think we're in trouble anyway. My question is more of, I have a son, he's 10, and when I talk to him about these things, it often feels like I'm lecturing him rather than having an interaction. He's not very much of a talker. He lost his dad, so I don't have a male figure to go through that, but his dad was a huge Trump guy anyway, so I don't even know how to feel about that. But like, how do I get that perspective for him since it's just me? How do I get him to connect and empathize that everybody's people? I don't know how to word it exactly, what I'm asking.
Mandy, I was going to let you start since you've done this with the kiddos,
Yeah.
but I mean,
for me,
yeah,
I
how
do
old
think-
is he? That's a good question first. I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry,
he's
Mandy. I want to
10.
know how old he is. Okay.
10 years old. Yeah, and that's a hard age to, especially if he's quiet. So I have one that's very quiet. And I try to engage in conversations without feeling preachy, which I get that. It's really hard not to come at it from a do as I say, don't do this, don't do that. Are you hearing this? What are you doing? It's really hard not to do that because we know what they can be subject to. But I think as long as you are invested in knowing, if he's online, what he's doing, who he's talking to, if you're listening to those conversations that might be happening when he's on a computer or an iPad or whatever, because when they're gaming, they're talking to each other. Some of the earliest conversations I had with my kids would be when I would overhear something that was completely out of pocket, like some sexist statement or when they were just gaming with their buddies. And I'd be like, oh, absolutely not. We aren't talking like that. We don't do that. And here's why. Or, hey, do you understand why that could be really, really disrespectful or why that could really hurt somebody? And one of the most impactful conversations, and I'm not going to say it didn't sound preachy, but it got through. My son at about 16, my oldest, who's now 20, was in that stage of like, I just want to be cool with the guys. He had a mullet. It was a whole thing. And we're a very small
country little town, and he felt like he wanted to be a redneck or whatever the hell he was doing. And I got an email from the school saying he was making sexist jokes. They didn't tell me exactly what was said. Obviously, if it had been bad enough, I'd have been called in. But they alerted me to this, which was very outside his behavior, but also very expected at 16, I guess. And for me in that moment, because I was made privy to it, I sat him down. I said, I need you to understand that next time you decide you want to make a joke like that, come home and just slap me in the face. And he's like, what? I go, and your sister. Just come slap us in the face, because that's essentially what you're doing when you make sexist jokes. You are
that's
slapping
powerful.
your mom in the face. You're slapping your sister in the face, and I know you better than that. And I said it very calm. I just addressed it because I said, this isn't okay, and I've raised you better than this. I know you know that's not okay, and you would never slap me in the face, you know? Like, you'd never do that. But that's how it felt getting that email. And to this day, he's been he's very receptive to that. But again, it all comes down to paying attention to what they're hearing, what they're engaging in, and then looking for those opportunities to have those conversations about the impact of their words. If he, ask him what things his friends say about little girls. Ask him what they talk about on the bus if he takes the bus. Ask what's being said so that you can actually affect what is happening in his life and not some sort of hypothetical thing that he may or may not be experiencing, if that makes sense.
I get it. Yeah. He's known the words informed, enthusiastic consent since he was 2. So pretty much I'll be like, okay, Elliot, what do we know? Informed, like he says it at this point, he's like rolling his eyes while he's saying it.
I love it.
He has, yes. He is.
You're a great mom.
He knows, but he doesn't know. Like, it's not an experience for him, and I want him to, like, it hasn't clicked for him, and I can tell.
I think we also, so something that I do a lot, and I'm a certified sex therapist, so I do a lot of work around like unindoctrinating from the manosphere, right? One of the biggest questions that we should be asking our young boys is, what about this speaks to you? What do you think is true here, right? Because we know that studies say that the majority of men in America say they feel that no one really knows them or no one understands them. But then they get into these manosphere spaces and they're like, oh, they get it. They get me, right? What's happening there? What makes you feel heard over here? What sounds good about this? Let's talk about that. And then I can start unpacking the things that are speaking to you specifically from those spaces, right? So that's really helpful. And the other thing is, like Mandy said, they're getting this stuff from everywhere. So ask what's being said at school, ask what their friends are saying on the bus or the walk home or whatever. But then also when you see stuff on TV, I'm calling out stuff on TV so much that it is irritating to the kids. It's so irritating. Harrison Butker's a great example, right? That was one that skated under the radar because he said nice things about women, didn't he? So when that stuff was on the news and people were like, let's debate this. And people were like, well, I think he was saying nice stuff. I pause the TV and I go, ooh, that feels icky to me. Did you guys catch it? Did you catch that? Why do you think? And they know what misogyny is, right? So they know misogyny is control of women. They know that it's trying to keep women down and keep women in line. So I say, what was wrong with that? Did you catch the misogyny? What's going on there? Now, it took them a second because it was benevolent sexism. It was the good kind and made women sound good. It wasn't hostile sexism. But eventually they got to it that it was saying, oh, women should get back in the kitchen, basically. It was saying the most important thing a woman can do in her entire life is have a child. Well, not all women have children and not all women want them, right? And a family is not what you aspire to. And even if you did, it's inappropriate to tell women that just spent 4 years in college that accomplishment, they eventually got there, right? But they didn't get there because of the narrative that was going on in the media. They got there because of the narrative that was going on at home.
That's good stuff. Great. Jen, hi.
Hi. Wow. Thank you, ladies, so much for doing this and holding a space for us. And I almost didn't want to talk after Danielle was giving that amazing information.
I feel like that all the time. Like I shouldn't be here.
2 quick points, hopefully. First of all, I agree with all of you that the monitoring has to happen with our kids, because if you think about it, the new regime is going after our children, right? They were indoctrinating them very early. So by the time they hit 18, they already had this mindset, right? So it is definitely important to monitor your kids. And for moms out there, there are apps that you can monitor specific language that it's going through texts on your kid's phone, because you don't always see that. Like if they're talking with their friends while they're playing video games, you can kind of overhear the conversations, but you don't always see what they're doing on their apps. So there are, look into it. There are apps that you can put on your phone that connect with their phones, that monitor for certain language, certain phrases, all the sort of things, geofencing. So make sure you check into those things so you can check it all, and then have those conversations exactly like Mandy and like Danielle were saying, because it needs to become intrinsic. It can't just be, don't say it, right? I don't want to hear it. It has to be, why aren't we saying that? Why aren't we feeling that way, right? Like Danielle said, you do need to learn what to catch yourself. Like even shows like Married with Children, right? Total sexism in a show like that, because the canned applause happens every time they say a comment about girls wearing tight skirts and junk like that, right? So it is hard to catch it until you're taught. So definitely come back to these sessions that these ladies are having every week so you can learn those things and learn what to look out for your own children. And then the other thing I picked up when Lynn's was on was that she was saying, hey, these other guys are allowed to say this political stuff, but I'm not allowed to. When they're talking about Joe Rogan, that's definitely political, but she wasn't allowed to. So I do agree with holding your space and conserving your energy for when it will be beneficial and actually productive, right? You know when you're going to spin your wheels. But for those of you who work in a workspace, and I managed an office myself, so you can go to an HR representative and say, hey, you know, there are things that are making me uncomfortable. I'm being told I can't talk about these things, but certain other people are, and that's not really fair in the workplace. So there should be a level of fairness regardless of what the topic is, you know, political or otherwise. So if they're not holding the same accountability for everybody, whatever the rule is, you can go to somebody, an ombudsman, your HR representative, or escalate from there. And if that's not going anywhere, and I've definitely been a part of those toxic workplaces where you go as far as you go up the ladder and you're still shot down, that's your time to look elsewhere if possible, because that's just toxic and you're not going to go anywhere. But if you think you can form some allies there, do so that it is fair all the way around. So anyway, that was it. Thank you again.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Like,
Jen.
truly love that. And I don't know if I was following her. Jen, say something in the comments. If I'm not following you, I want to make sure I am, because I appreciate that. Chrissy, hey girl, hey. Jen, will you say something in the comments so I can make sure I'm following you? I just think that's great advice and I appreciate it. There we go. I'm still, yes, follow. Okay, got it. Chrissy, you're loading. I'm trying. Do you want to request again, Chrissy, if it doesn't load? Do you want to, Chrissy, just request again and I'll let you up again. I'm going to go to the next person and then I'll let you up again if you can hear this. This is our last person requesting. If anyone else wants to get in the box and has a question, or otherwise Chrissy will just be last. Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. I hope you can hear me okay. I just wanted to make one comment about taking children to a protest. I think it's fine to take them to a protest, but I think it's important that you prepare them for counter protesters, for people being ugly, people screaming, not necessarily violence, but just, that there may be ugly people there. And, prepare them that that's a possibility, and and explain to them that those people are just unhappy and we're not going to let them make us unhappy, and we're just kind of prepare them for the possibility so it's not a shock.
Totally agree.
Yeah
I agree with that. I think I think, again, I don't have children, but I was a teacher, an elementary school teacher. And I'd say, I'm always amazed at the amount of opposition young girls face just at school, just at a day at school. You would, if I think that, I was a second grade teacher, and I would say 7-year-old girls in school are facing constant opposition, they're being bullied, they're being teased, so I also think, don't underestimate, a kid's ability to understand. So yeah, it's about open conversation and say, hey, how would you feel if this happened? Or are you comfortable with this? Does this make sense? I always used to say, 7-year-old children, like, they're learning to push back, they're learning to push boundaries. They are little adults and they can understand, and if you just have these honest, open conversations and say, hey, are you comfortable with this? I need to know, and you teach them, there's nothing you can't say to me. There's nothing you can't ask me. You can always tell me when you don't like something, and then, give them that really like free, uninhibited agency to come to you with anything. Oh, you can't get them to stop telling you when they don't like something.
Exactly. Well, my network is unstable, so I'm going to drop.
Okay, I think we have. Here,
Andy, how you doing on time?
I'm all right. I sent a text that I was going to be a few minutes.
Can you hear me this time?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you. And then we have one more after right now in the box, so we'll be done soon.
So Mandy and Danielle, I just wanted to ask you as a fellow Floridian woman, I am 39. I have a Mirena that I just got at the beginning of this year. So I know that I'm good for 7 years, I think. Do you think that I should get a tubal? I mean, my son is 18. My son's grown. He's away at college. Like, I have zero desire to reproduce. What is your opinion on that? And I'm going to drop down.
I think it's hard to tell anyone what to do with their body or to give anybody medical advice because everyone's body is very different. Everybody has different, again, risk thresholds, and you know what your own personal medical history is and what that surgical risk would be for you, right? Mirena lasts for up to 8 years. It is 99% effective. It's what we call LARC, which is long-acting reversible birth control. Now that we know Trump will be in office on January 20th, and I'm so glad someone asked this question, I am advising all of my patients that do not want to get pregnant for the next, for the next 4 years. I am advising all of them to get LARC, long-acting reversible birth control. That's the IUD, that's Nexplanon, right? Long-acting reversible birth control, because they may outlaw the IUD in the next 4 years. You may not be able to get one past January. So if you don't have one and you know you don't want to have a baby for at least the next 4 years, go get yourself an IUD or some kind of LARC, long-acting reversible birth control, LARC. You can Google, what are my LARC options? And it will pull stuff up for you, right? So I'm advising everybody to go out there and get that if you know you do not want to get pregnant. A tubal ligation is obviously what we call like a permanent sterilization. There's still a really, really, really tiny chance that you could get pregnant, right? Like it's really, really tiny, but we always have to tell people that the chance is minuscule. It is more effective than the IUD, but the IUD is also 99% effective. So it's something to keep in mind. I think that if it is something that you know for sure you will never want to have another child and you want that worry off of your list, right? You want that off your mental load. Yep, by all means, find one of those lists that have lists of doctors that will sterilize you, no questions asked. Go set up your appointment and get that done, right? If you know that that is something that you want and it's within your risk threshold, right? Your health can handle it. Yep, by all means, go get it done.
God.
And I just want to piggyback. Oh, I'm sorry. This comes from my having 15 years in medical insurance. Keep in mind, like there's a lot of different ways they could go about making these things hard to get. And one of those is also making it to where people can't get it covered by insurance. So to Danielle's point, don't wait if you don't have to. Take it seriously. It's not meant to scare people. I understand it's scary, but it's actually taking control, right? It's the ultimate control is you're saying, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that I don't have to find myself faced with needing an abortion. And not being able to get one. I want to be on birth control. That's going to give me the greatest chance of that happening. And there's a lot of paths that they are going to be looking at exploring to take those options away. And IUDs, especially because they keep wanting to call them abortifacients and everything else. Like those are definitely ones on the short list of things that they are coming for. So please, I saw a lot of comments about how scary this is. Try to see it as an empowered move to make that decision for yourself before you can't make it. You know,
Amen. The worst is loss of control. I mean, sorry, that's just maybe
Right.
that's personal, but yeah, like the worst is when you have no options and you have no control over your body. So yeah, while we still have it, like definitely, like let's take the power. We have the power. Let's take it into our own hands and manage, whether or not we get pregnant. Hey, Cassie.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Okay, so this is my very, very first time coming on a live, so I'm super nervous, but I'm just going to spit this out really quick. I've been seeing some stuff online about people trying to push to get the 28th Amendment ratified, which is the Equal Rights Amendment. I was wondering if you guys have heard anything about that, and I just kind of wanted to plug it. You can go to voteequality.us to learn more about it.
I'm pretty
Plug
sure
the crap out of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one I tagged both of you guys in, about how it's a matter of Biden saying, go ahead and sign this. Let's make this. Let's get this in the Constitution. So like it's everything's done. He just has to say, yeah, let's log this or whatever it was. So by all means, everyone should be. I think that going out there you sign a petition.
Is there a threshold for states though, right? That ratified
There
it?
was a 38 state threshold
We
in
finally reached
Virginia.
it, yeah.
We reached the
in
38.
2020 we reached it.
Okay, amazing. Okay, just double
And
check.
then there was also I'm not sure what court decided on it, but there was a time limit on it when it originally was proposed. And then
It was Congress.
and then I guess Congress decided that was unconstitutional, or that there shouldn't be a time limit. So there technically isn't a time limit on it now. So
people said, a couple people asked questions in the comments. So the ERA is the Equal Rights Amendment, something that I like to remind everybody of. If you didn't know this, the only right women have to vote in the Constitution, or the only right women have in the Constitution is the right to vote. That is it. The only right women have in the Constitution is the right to vote. You do not have rights in the rest of the Constitution. The only reason you have those rights is because men have nicely extended them to you. But the Supreme Court can take those away very, very quickly. Women were not considered people when the Constitution was made. So the only right you have in the Constitution is the right to vote. The Equal Rights Amendment is literally just an amendment saying that all persons born, women were not people. Women were not people when the Constitution was made. Persons meant white land owning. Women were property of their husband. Women existed under what we call coverture law, which means legally your identity was covered by the identity of your husband. That's why you couldn't have a bank account, why you couldn't vote, why you couldn't own property, because you didn't have a legal identity. So all persons born did not include women. You were not considered a person. The Equal Rights Amendment is saying women are considered people under the Constitution, and therefore all constitutional rights apply to women. It is insane that in 2024, women are still not considered people under our Constitution, right? That's all the ERA says. The ERA says women will be considered people under the Constitution. We needed 2/3 of states to ratify it. It first became a thing in the 1920s. They tried to do it again in the 1960s. In the 1960s, they said, okay, let's give it a try. We need 2/3 of states to ratify it. We did not get 2/3 of states to agree to the Equal Rights Amendment until 2020, when Virginia became the 2/3 vote that we needed. Now we have 2/3 of the states, but Congress had put an arbitrary time limit on it, saying you have to get it done within 20 years. Well, the 1980s came and went, and we didn't have 2/3 of the states to ratify it. Now we do. The time limit was still in place. That was challenged in courts. The court said this time limit is unconstitutional. Now the time limit is gone, and our government still has not ratified the Equal Rights Amendment.
Well said. God, hold on. Let me, Tanya. Yeah, Tanya, you there? Yeah, this is our last guest. Thank you guys so much. Hey, Tanya, what's going on?
Hi, I actually don't know how I got on here, but I'm going to just make a comment on the ERA. I have shared the petition, and I've been asked by several, probably Trump-loving women, what it changed. Because if you read the petition, it sounds like it's already passed. And the question, I guess, I do have a question about it, is why hasn't Biden already done that? I would think that he would have been our best hope. What's holding him back from just telling them to get that, the archivist to put that in?
That's a great question. It's a really great question. It just hasn't been on the priority list, honestly, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I mean, we needed the courts to remove the time limit, right? And I can't remember what year that happened. But it's not anybody's priority because we care about women so little here.
Truly, and we need to put as much pressure on our local representatives, on Biden, on whoever the powers that be to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment before, right? Like before we are outside of power. But
we don't have any other questions, right?
No.
Somebody had asked, can I go over LARC really quick? Because people were asking.
Definitely.
So I am recommending all my patients get LARC if you know that you don't want to be pregnant within the next 4 years. If you know you don't want to get pregnant during this administration, I am advising everybody to go out and get long-acting reversible contraception. Sorry, my brain just short-circuited. We call it LARC for short, LARC. Someone said, oh, that includes the IUD. What does it include? It includes IUDs. There's copper IUDs, which are non-hormonal. And then there's the hormonal IUDs, and there's several options of those. And then there's Nexplanon. Nexplanon is the implant, the little toothpick that goes into your arm, and it lasts for up to 5 years. So that's what LARC is. Long-acting reversible birth control. It's long-acting, it acts for several years, and it is reversible, meaning we can remove it from you at any time. If you know you do not want to get pregnant in the next 4 years, and before they make IUDs illegal, go get yourself some LARC, and it will last for the entire time of this presidency. And for people wondering how they're going to make it illegal, like Mandy said, there's multiple avenues. They can remove funding for it. They're planning on taking birth control off of Obamacare. They're planning on saying that your health insurance doesn't have to cover any birth control options. But also you need to remember that the right does not consider this birth control. They consider it an abortifacient. They consider anything that prevents an egg from implanting as an abortifacient. Now, then a lot of people come back and they say, well, I thought it stopped you from ovulating. It does. A lot of birth control have what we call the primary mechanism of action, which is the primary way that it works. And the primary way that a lot of them work is by preventing you from ovulating. But then they have what we call the secondary mechanism of action. And that is if you happen to ovulate and an egg happens to get fertilized, it will thin the lining of your uterus, which is why we often use birth control for people that have heavy periods or irregular periods. It will thin the lining of the uterus so that way that the fertilized egg cannot implant. That is what Republicans have a problem with. They believe once that egg is fertilized, remember, you're not pregnant until the egg implants. You are not pregnant until an egg implants in the uterus. But the time between fertilization and implantation is 7 to 10 days. So for 7 to 10 days, you have a fertilized egg, but you're not pregnant yet. They have a problem with you preventing implantation, and they will ban anything that prevents implantation that includes birth control pills.
God, I tried to tell someone that same thing, like that life begins at implantation, not conception is a religious idea, and it didn't go well. One last question that someone sent me through Venmo. As a future father expecting child girl, what would be some good resources to prepare her? Thanks for all you do.
Say the question one more time.
It just says, I think it's Morgan is a future father who's expecting a girl. What would be some good resources, I don't know, to prepare her for life?
Prepare you for life, Morgan. We need to prepare you for having a daughter first before you can prepare her. Bell hooks. I mean, read the hell out of bell hooks. that's a great way to see the way that women see the world and also see the way that patriarchy is hurting men. God, love me some bell hooks, honestly.
Me too. The will to change. Read The Will to Change. Like, understand your role in the patriarchy, how the patriarchy has damaged you, and then read more bell hooks, right? Like, that's what you need to see. Like, men, like bell hook says, their empathy is killed off. Their ability to put themselves in the shoes of women and understand what it's like to be the prey, the prey gender of a species and to survive, right? Like, I mean, that's what you need to understand is what it's going to be like for your child, for your daughter, for your baby girl to move through the world, right? And if you can get an understanding of that, I think you're on a good track.
The Purity Myth by Jessica Valenti is also an absolutely fabulous one. If no one's read that, The Purity Myth is wonderful. It talks about how in American culture, we have like overarching, not just religion, but we have this overarching obsession with young girls' purity and them acting like good women. And it talks about how that leads, the Purity Myth, yes, is what it's called. That it talks about how that leads to violence, right? That belief, it sounds like this good belief, right? We're putting women up on this pedestal, but that actually leads to harm against women. And yes, Bell Hooks is an author. Bell Hooks has written many books. Jessica Valenti has written a couple books now. The Purity Myth is her first book from, early 2000s probably.
Bell, Bell, last name Hooks, Hooks, right? And if you're Morgan, since you're a man, like The Will to Change is literally written. It's Bell Hooks, who's a Black feminist, writing to men. So I would say start with The Will to Change and then go on from there. Are we good? I mean, I think for a first episode,
there could be a book list in the Discord. I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, we'll get a book list for sure. God, don't get me started. We need to do a book club too.
You guys want a funny little anecdote to end the day?
Yeah, let's do. Keep it
happened
light.
That happened to me today.
I got to go get a IUD, so make it quick.
In my over planning for what's happening, I ordered like a package of Plan B pills. I have a daughter, and I have my uterine eviction kit, as you will call it, through Aid Access, and I ordered like the strip pregnancy test because you just never know, you want to have those, but I forgot I ordered the pregnancy tests until they showed up at my door, and the way I about lost my mind because I'm like, oh my god, what, who, Paige? And then I realized, you idiot, you daughter didn't order these. These are yours because I had a hysterectomy because of endometriosis, so like they're not for me. But I had to laugh because I was like, for like a whole solid like minute, I was in a complete panic, and then I'm like, you ordered these. I just like to have those things for her friends, whoever's going to need them. But it was like the way that I just had a complete panic attack when they arrived today.
Someone's asking what's the expiration time on Plan B?
About 4 years. About 4 years. So here's what I always advise people. You will take this advice as you will. This is not medical advice as your provider. This is advice on TikTok. Most medications don't actually completely expire. Most medications just get less effective, right? So the expiration date is usually the date at which it's been determined that medication becomes less effective. This is true for like a lot of medications. I don't want to say all, there's obviously some. So will it last longer than that? Yes. However, the research shows us it just becomes less effective as time goes on, right? So Plan B lasts for about 4 years. As Mandy said, you can order them on Amazon. You can order packs of them, like stock up. Now's the time.
Yep.
We'll cover that. So next week, like we'll do more on where the resources. Danny will go off on that. She has where we can get Plan B and other resources.
I'll be out hiking in the West somewhere. Like I'm not sure, but if I have service, I will hop on. But I will be back the week after. So
okay, cool.
I'm gonna go touch some grass next week and just remind myself that there are beautiful places to be yet and ways to clear your brain. So,
I walk 10 miles a day to stay sane. Okay, I think this is this has been a great show. Thank you, ladies, for joining. We'll figure out next week. And thank you guys, everyone Any last words, guys? If not, I think we're good.
We'll see y'all next week.
Later,
See y'all.
Gators.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.